Chapter 1105. Lin Tian's essence, energy, and spirit rapidly strengthened. The tomb owner's emperor-chi flowed into his body from the green jade, turning into an extremely pure Tao energy that merged with his flesh, blood, and bones. This caused his cultivation to soar rapidly. This was a gift. Buzz. Outside his body, the golden divine light became denser, and the great Tao laws became more powerful, illuminating the surroundings. This surprised him, but he quickly calmed down. He sat down cross-legged on the spot and used his mind to activate the Sun Heart Sutra. He quickly refined the emperor-chi that flowed into his body and used it to refine his flesh, blood, and bones. As he used his mind to refine the emperor-chi that flowed into his body, his aura soared even faster. In the blink of an eye, he went from the early stage of Nirvana realm to the middle stage of Nirvana realm. Picking up this piece of broken jade is really worth it. Whooshing Crocodile and Ling Yun stared at him. Previously, because of the octopus-like monster, they had asked Lin Tian to throw away the broken jade. However, they did not expect the broken jade to help them enter the Emperor's palace. After it merged, it returned a wisp of Emperor Chi to Lin Tian. This kind of gift was a great divine treasure. This kid, ever since he refined that immortal stone of fortune, his luck has been unbelievably good. Whooshing Crocodile bared his teeth. The golden divine light circled around Lin Tian's body, causing the aura that Lin Tian emitted to become stronger and stronger. Wisps of aura rose as if they would never stop. At this time, he had already crossed the middle stage of Nirvana realm. Buzz. As the golden divine light danced, the air in this place buzzed slightly. Lin Tian sat cross-legged on the ground, seriously activating the Sun Heart Sutra to refine the Emperor Chi that entered his body. He looked solemn. In the blink of an eye, 7 days had passed. On this day, the aura outside his body reached a critical point. Then, it suddenly weakened, and his body began to turn into stone. He's about to enter Nirvana realm. The second metamorphosis. Ling Yun was shocked. Lower your voice, Whooshing Crocodile said in a low voice. From now on, stop talking. Within the rebirth realm, it was an extremely dangerous process for a cultivator to undergo rebirth, and it couldn't be disturbed by the outside world. Otherwise, it was extremely likely that it would cause the rebirth to fail, and once the rebirth failed, it would basically result in the destruction of one's body and soul. At this time, Lin Tian began the second Nirvana metamorphosis. Since this stone chamber was sealed, the echo was relatively loud and could possibly create interference. In order to ensure the absolute safety of Lin Tian's Nirvana metamorphosis, it was undoubtedly best to maintain silence. Lin Tian sat cross-legged beside the emperor corpse and cultivated. Naturally, he could sense that his body was slowly petrifying. He knew that he was undergoing a new Nirvana metamorphosis. He immediately calmed himself down, and his Tao heart became incomparably calm and peaceful. Gradually, his aura became weaker and weaker. More and more parts of his body began to turn to stone. From his legs to his abdomen, from his abdomen to his chest, from his chest to his head. In the blink of an eye, his entire body had turned into dark gray stone. Whooshing Crocodile and Ling Yun knew that this was the critical stage of Nirvana metamorphosis. They didn't say a word and silently guarded by the side. For a moment, the stone chamber suddenly became incomparably quiet. Lin Tian's body turned into stone and sat cross-legged on the ground like a lifelike stone statue. His aura was like a dying candle. Time passed. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. Crack! On this day, a crisp sound was heard. Cracks appeared on Lin Tian's stone body and spread out like a spider web. Then, a continuous cracking sound was heard. His stone body began to collapse along with the cracks. Pieces of stone fell off, revealing a new body. It's done! Whooshing Crocodile's eyes flashed with a glimmer of light. Nirvana Stage 3! Damn it, this cultivation speed is really fast! Ling Yun gritted his teeth. In front of him, Lin Tian's stone body had completely fallen off. The second Nirvana metamorphosis was completed. He slowly opened his eyes. Suddenly, a glimmer of light flashed in his eyes and disappeared, temporarily illuminating the entire stone chamber. The old body had been shed and a new body had been born. At this time, his cultivation had truly entered Nirvana Stage 3. He could clearly feel that his flesh, blood, meridians, bones, sea of consciousness, and soul had been greatly strengthened. His strength had increased by a large margin again. This is Nirvana. Truly, every time you undergo Nirvana, your strength will undergo an earth-shaking change, he muttered to himself. After a pause, he smiled at Wishing Crocodile and Ling Yun and stood up. However, it was also at this moment that his sea of consciousness suddenly shuddered. Vast images appeared in his sea of consciousness. His body seemed to be pulled into them. It was as if he had been placed in a boundless darkness with countless stars revolving around him. He saw a pair of eyes that were countless times larger than the stars at the top of the starry sky. They were intertwined with coldness, as if the light of time was flowing in them. They were looking down at a hazy figure in the starry sky. The hazy figure was slender, but his aura could swallow mountains and rivers. He was standing in the starry sky, but it seemed as if he was stepping on the starry sky. With a roar, he shattered countless stars. He threw a punch at the huge eyes at the top of the starry sky. He saw the starry sky begin to be destroyed. He saw the Tao begin to wither. Then, blood exploded. The eyes at the top of the starry sky were still cold as they looked down on everything. The hazy figure fell. Blood stained the starry sky and fell to the eternal unknown. Cough! Lin Tian's body shook. He coughed out a mouthful of blood on the spot. His body became extremely cold in an instant. Wishing Crocodile and Ling Yun were shocked. They flashed over together. Kid, what's wrong with you? I'm fine, cough. Lin Tian shook his head and coughed out another mouthful of blood. At the same time, an intense pain came from his head. He could not help but squat down. Blood kept flowing out. You call this fine? Wishing Crocodile glared. Did something go wrong with his cultivation? It doesn't seem like it. Even if something went wrong, it should be during the Nirvana process. It can't be now. Ling Yun was also worried. Lin Tian waved his hand. He was panting slightly. He felt a sharp pain in his head. At the same time, his chest was extremely oppressed. What's going on? What is that? He gritted his teeth. This was the second time this image had appeared in his sea of consciousness. It was completely out of the blue, and every time it appeared, it would hurt his mind. Although it was not a serious injury, it made him feel extremely depressed from the bottom of his heart. He squatted on the ground and panted. He used the Sun Heart Sutra to calm himself down. After a while, he stood up again. Buzz! His sea of consciousness trembled. Suddenly, more images appeared in his mind. Just like before, his body seemed to be pulled into this image. It was as if he was there. He saw a boundless grassland. He saw a 1-meter-tall child, who was driving a few goats. He was wearing patched clothes. The 1-meter-tall child, who was about 4 years old, held a small straw whip in his hand. He laughed happily as he drove the goats. However, he could not see the child's face clearly. In the blink of an eye, the image disappeared without a trace. His chest shook slightly, and an intense pain came from his head. This kind of pain was too intense and unbearable. Although it did not cause him any harm, it was extremely painful. It was as if millions of golden needles were fiercely piercing his head, causing his sea of consciousness to sway slightly. This pain was so intense that he could not help but reach out and cover half of his head to ease the pain. Kid, what's going on with you? Don't scare me! Wishing Crocodile glared. Having known Lin Tian for so long, it had never seen Lin Tian in such pain when he was smashed into pieces under the heavenly tribulation. However, now that he was like this, it could not help but worry. Beside him, Ling Yun also looked at Lin Tian. The worry in his eyes was very obvious. Lin Tian panted. I'm fine. He sat down again and used the Sun Heart Sutra again, causing the golden divine light to spread all over his body in the blink of an eye. The strong divine power flowed through every corner of his body, sorting out his already chaotic mind. In the blink of an eye, a full 3 days passed. After 3 days, he calmed down, opened his eyes again, and stood up. "Are you really okay?" Wishing Crocodile asked. It and Ling Yun had been silently waiting for 3 days. They were really worried. "I'm fine. Don't worry." Lin Tian now. After 3 days of adjustment, although he had not forgotten the 2 images that had suddenly appeared in his spiritual sea, he had already calmed down. The intense pain in his head had already disappeared without a trace. "Are you sure you're okay?" Ling Yun frowned. Lin Tian chuckled. "Don't worry." Ling Yun looked up and down. Wishing Crocodile was also looking at Lin Tian. "It feels weird," Ling Yun murmured, but soon he didn't care. Because at this moment, Lin Tian's breath was very stable. It really didn't seem like something was wrong. As he spoke, he glanced at the stone chamber and couldn't help but roll his eyes. "I thought I could find many treasures in this tomb master room. Unexpectedly, there is nothing." As early as Lin Tian's nirvana, he and Wishing Crocodile carefully looked at the entire stone chamber, and found that there was nothing in it except for the withered emperor corpse. Not to mention rare treasures, there was not even a coffin. "Well, I'm a little disappointed," Wishing Crocodile couldn't help but say. In an emperor's tomb, there was nothing. It was really disappointing. Lin Tian didn't care. Moreover, because he knew some things about the tomb master through the broken jade, he had a certain level of respect for the tomb master. He smiled and said, "Don't mind it. Just treat it as us paying respects to a wise elder." As he spoke, he continued, "Moreover, isn't there a holy vein below?" Hearing him say this, Wishing Crocodile and Ling Yun's eyes lit up and they both nodded. "I'm waiting for you. Hurry up and dig out the holy vein below." Ling Yun's eyes lit up. With a flawless holy vein, he and Wishing Crocodile could enter the Nirvana realm in a short time. Chapter 1106. Lin Tianwei nodded slightly, naturally understanding Ling Yun's urgency at this moment. "Step back a little first," he said. As soon as he finished speaking, he walked to the center of the stone chamber, glanced at the emperor corpse not far away, and slightly bowed. Immediately, the dragon patterns on the soles of his feet spread out, sinking into the ground one by one. With a crack, a hole with a diameter of about 10 meters appeared under his feet. Then, more dragon patterns emerged from the soles of his feet, sinking into the ground at an extremely fast speed. He stood quietly in place, probing with the dragon patterns, not moving at all. His expression was calm. In the blink of an eye, dozens of breaths passed. Roar! A loud dragon roar came from the ground, as if a real dragon had awakened. Then, a vast and extremely pure spiritual energy soared into the sky, filling the entire stone chamber in the blink of an eye. For a moment, the 2 people and the crocodile couldn't help but tremble. They only felt that the pores all over their body were relaxed, and their whole body was comfortable. Looking down the hole that Lin Tian had created with his dragon mark, the ground was filled with radiance and spirit light. It was like a strange world of spirit light. Vaguely, one could see a huge divine dragon coiling around, as if it was about to rush up into the sky. Divine! Divine vein! Flawless divine vein! Ling Yun's eyes lit up, and he clenched his fists, his body trembling slightly with excitement. Beside him, Wishing Crocodile was also very excited, its eyes flashing with demonic light. After all, this is a divine vein. Such a spiritual energy amalgamation, even in this vast 9th heaven, there are at most 23 of them. Even some half-step emperors would find it difficult to find one. It can be said to be a divine treasure among divine treasures. "Yeah!" A cheerful voice sounded from Lin Tian's body. Next to his life source, the little guy in the divine egg felt the majestic spiritual energy of the divine vein, and immediately woke up, letting out a cheerful voice. Lin Tianyi smiled, and with a thought, the divine egg floated out of his body, surrounded by strands of gentle light. "Yeah!" The little guy issued a joyful sound from the divine egg. Although it hadn't broken out of the shell yet, it had already developed its own consciousness. It circled around Lin Tian, and emitted a gentle light. It seemed to be very happy. "This is that little guy? That divine egg?" Ling Yun's eyes widened. This was the first time he had seen this little fellow. "Yes." Lin Tian nodded. Then, he looked at the godly egg floating next to him and pointed at the godly pulse. He smiled and said, "Little guy, you've absorbed the godly pulse here. You should be able to come out now. Sorry for making you wait for so long." The divine egg trembled slightly and emitted strands of gentle light. The little fellow inside let out a squeak again. The gentle light coiled around Lin Tian's body as if it was comforting Lin Tian. Its voice was intertwined with a sense of happiness. Lin Tianyi smiled and pointed down. "Go quickly." The little guy emitted a cheerful sound from inside the divine egg again. Strands of glimmering light rippled out from the egg. Then, it dived down and jumped into the divine vein underneath the tomb. Suddenly, the flawless godly pulse trembled. Rolling spiritual light gushed out of the divine egg like a tsunami, causing the patterns on the surface of the divine egg to become brighter and brighter. The light was very dazzling. "You guys go quickly, too. I won't go down. I'll guard you here." Lin Tian tilted his head and said to Wishing Crocodile and Ling Yun. He had just entered the third heaven of Nirvana realm. Consolidating the Taoist foundation was the most important thing. Now, there was no need to absorb more spiritual energy. The 5 elements Crocodile and Ling Yun obviously knew what Lin Tian was thinking. They immediately nodded and jumped down one after another with excited expressions. They entered the divine vein below. Then, the man and the crocodile both operated their own ancient scriptures and drew the spiritual energy of the godly pulse into their bodies to cultivate. For a moment, 2 different lights intertwined. The aura of the man and the crocodile rose rapidly, forming a small vortex of spiritual energy around each of them. With a buzzing sound, the vortex wrapped around each of them. On the other side, the buzzing sound was even louder. The little guy was in the divine egg, absorbing the spiritual light of the godly pulse. It also intertwined a spiritual energy vortex, but it was more than 10 times bigger than the vortex around Wishing Crocodile and Ling Yun. Buzz! On the surface of the egg, strands of complicated divine runes intertwined, becoming brighter and brighter. Lin Tian stood in the tomb and looked down. He couldn't help but chuckle. This time, the little guy would definitely be born. He stared down. The little guy in the divine egg was quickly absorbing the spiritual energy of the godly pulse. Wishing Crocodile and Ling Yun were operating their own ancient scriptures. Their auras were constantly rising. Everything seemed very stable. There was nothing to worry about. For a moment, his eyes were a little hazy. Although the scene in the godly pulse was reflected in his pupils, he couldn't help but think of other things. "What the hell is that?" he muttered to himself. A few days ago, the scene suddenly appeared again. The pair of huge eyes and the hazy figure made it difficult for him to let go. He didn't understand why such a scene would appear in his sea of consciousness, and it wasn't the first time. Every time, it made his mind tremble. It made him feel more depressed than going through the heavenly tribulation. There was also the child driving the goat. He didn't know why, but although he couldn't see the child's appearance clearly, he vaguely felt that he was very familiar. As he thought about it, he couldn't help but feel a sharp pain in his head. His chest felt like it was being pressed down by a large stone. This made him feel irritated. He shook his head fiercely to calm himself down. Why? He clenched his fists. He didn't know what his great path order was, and he never cared about it. However, the scene in his sea of consciousness made him feel a little annoyed. He frowned and pondered, but he really couldn't understand anything. Instead, it made him feel even more depressed and irritated. Buzz! The light intertwined, dazzling and resplendent. It came from the godly pulse below. The divine patterns on the surface of the little guy's egg became even brighter and emitted a strange buzzing sound. At this time, it interrupted his thoughts. He stared at this scene, and his eyes couldn't help but become clear. Then, he took a deep breath and shook his head again. Forget it. he whispered, too lazy to think about it. In fact, if he continued to think like this, he wouldn't be able to think of anything. Instead, it would only make him feel uneasy. It wasn't a good thing. He stared down. In the godly pulse, spirit chi surged and quickly flowed into the godly egg. It flowed into the wishing crocodile and Ling Yun's bodies, causing the aura they emitted to increase at an extremely fast speed. It was as if it would never stop. He stood above and silently protected them. Just like this, half a month passed in the blink of an eye. Boom! On this day, a shocking demonic energy swept out, as if it had set off a monstrous wave. It was very shocking. Nirvana realm! Lord Crocodile has stepped in again! Wishing Crocodile laughed wildly. It flew out from the godly pulse. Its body was intertwined with extremely dense demonic light. Its aura was extremely powerful. The 5 elements Tao light lingered around it, and there was a pure and soft Tao power intertwined. The great Tao of water? Lin Tian's eyes were slightly cold. Wishing Crocodile had previously mastered the 5 elements Tao. Now that it had stepped into the Nirvana realm, it seemed to have an additional great Tao of water. Wishing Crocodile laughed. I've already said that after stepping into the Nirvana realm, you will master more great Tao. The 5 elements Tao is Lord Crocodile's foundation. The great Tao of water is Lord Crocodile's second great Tao. It's the same for other cultivators. When they step into the Nirvana realm, they can master a new great Tao. In the future they will master more great Tao. As it spoke, it looked at Lin Tian and said, Of course, you are an exception. You have reached the 3rd heaven of Nirvana realm, but you haven't mastered any other great Tao. At this time, it was very excited. After all, it had stepped into the Nirvana realm. Moreover, it was the 2nd time. Its strength had made a qualitative leap. It was much stronger than the average early Nirvana realm cultivator. It was definitely comparable to the king body of the same level. Lin Tian glanced at it and didn't say anything. He looked down at the godly pulse. Wishing Crocodile chuckled. Because it was the 2nd time that it had stepped into the Nirvana realm, it only took a little time to consolidate its cultivation base and adapt to the new realm. Then, it stood up with Lin Tianyi and looked into the godly pulse under the tomb. Buzz! Buzz! In the godly pulse, Ling Yun and the little guy's godly egg were intertwined with bright light. Their auras were rising. Of course, the godly pattern on the surface of the godly egg was naturally much brighter than the light outside Ling Yun's body. The two couldn't be compared. In the blink of an eye, another 7 days had passed. On this day, a strong hurricane was produced outside of Ling Yun's body. His aura was like an erupting volcano. In the blink of an eye, it reached an extremely high point. Waves of light were produced, and there were waves of powerful great Tao principles intertwining with each other. Little Pervert has also stepped into the Nirvana realm. Cutting great Tao and connecting great Tao are both good great Tao. Wishing Crocodile squinted its eyes. Lin Tian looked down and smiled faintly. Ling Yun had stepped into the Nirvana realm. With a whoosh, he rushed out from the godly pulse and stepped beside Lin Tian and Wishing Crocodile. Nirvana realm! Hee hee! He had a series of excited expressions. Although it was only a small step from the half-step Nirvana realm to the Nirvana realm, the gap between the two was huge. You have just stepped into the Nirvana realm. Consolidate it first, Lin Tian said to him. Understood, Ling Yun replied and closed his eyes. He did not sit down cross-legged. Instead, he circulated the ancient scripture to adjust his cultivation. It was not until 3 days later that he opened his eyes. The Nirvana realm aura outside of his body had stabilized, like a still spring. Lin Tian saw that he had woken up and nodded at him. Then, he looked down at the godly pulse again. There, the divine runes outside the little guy's godly egg became brighter. The spiritual chi of the 10 directions godly pulse swept over. It hasn't been born yet. Ling Yun stared down. It still needs some time. Lin Tian ondao. He stared down quietly, silently guarding by the side. In the blink of an eye, another month had passed. On this day, the flawless godly pulse was almost depleted. The divine runes outside the little guy's godly egg were extremely bright. They began to fall off slowly, turning into rays of bright light and entering the godly egg. Boom! Immediately, an extremely shocking aura intertwined, causing the entire bronze palace to begin to shake. Chapter 1107. In the sky above the Taichu Immortal Ridge, all sorts of strange phenomena appeared one after another. The entire sky was instantly filled with divine light, causing all living beings in all directions to tremble in fear. There was a sacred aura intertwined at the top of the sky. This is... What happened? Why did it suddenly? What's going on with these strange phenomena? There were many cultivators both inside and outside the Taichu Immortal Ridge. At this moment, they all looked at the sky in shock. In the main chamber of the tomb in the Bronze Palace, buzz! In the divine pulse below the tomb, the divine patterns on the surface of the sacred egg rapidly fell off and surged into the sacred egg at an even faster speed. For a moment, the light was extremely dazzling, enveloping the entire space. It was so dazzling that it was difficult to open one's eyes. Then, strands of connate Tao patterns appeared around the sacred egg, forming an arc that enveloped the surroundings and protected the sacred egg. Rumble! The bronze palace shook even more violently, and cracks appeared in many places. They spread out like a spider web, as if it was about to shatter in the next moment. This... Ling Yun's eyes widened, and his heart palpitated. It hadn't even truly hatched, but it had already caused such a commotion. I'm really looking forward to it. The whooshing crocodile's eyes lit up. Lin Tian stared down, and wisps of light intertwined in his eyes as he carefully observed the changes in the little guy's sacred egg. As far as the eye could see, there wasn't much spiritual energy left in the divine pulse below the tomb's main chamber. It surged into the sacred egg even more violently, causing the divine patterns on the surface of the egg to fall off even faster. After falling off, they quickly entered the sacred egg. Immediately, an even more shocking aura intertwined and filled the stone chamber and the bronze palace. This caused the Yin soldiers and Yin spirits in the darkness within the bronze palace to tremble. Even the ghost saints, who were comparable to Nirvana-level ghost saints, trembled at this moment because of this aura. The Yin Qi in the entire palace instantly decreased by dozens of times. Lin Tian stood in the tomb's main chamber and stared seriously at the divine pulse below. The light in his eyes became even more intense. Buzz! Inside the divine vein, a brilliant light shone, and the space hummed. Gradually, the divine marks on the surface of the divine egg completely fell off and entered the divine egg, causing the qi emitted from the divine egg to become even more vigorous and vast. It was like a boundless starry sky. Around it, innate Tao patterns floated up and down, surrounding the divine egg as if it was serving the supreme divine emperor. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed. Crack! On this day, a crisp sound rang out. After the divine patterns fell off, a crack appeared on the surface of the jade-like divine egg, and an extremely astonishing 6-colored divine light revolved around it. In an instant, the entire bronze palace shook violently once again. Strange phenomena appeared one after another. Desolate lands, stars in the starry sky, true spirits, immortal beasts, and more appeared one after another. This is really... Whooshing Crocodile could not help but stare. Such a battle formation was truly somewhat frightening. Incredible! Ling Yun swallowed his saliva. Lin Tian stared down. Although he knew that the little guy was not ordinary, he still couldn't help but be surprised. Such a scene was indeed very shocking. Crack! Another crisp sound rang out. Then, cracking sounds rang out continuously. More and more cracks appeared on the surface of the divine egg, and the 6-colored divine light it emitted became denser and denser. After a few dozen breaths, a joyful squeak rang out. The entire divine egg broke open, and a ball of 6-colored light appeared. The strange phenomena in the surroundings immediately revolved around it, and even the path to the great Tao shook because of it. Lin Tian stared down with joy. After such a long time, the little guy finally broke out of the divine egg. Buzz! Below, the void buzzed. The six-colored divine light intertwined at the exhausted divine vein, and then slowly dispersed. As far as the eye could see, a beautiful little guy was hanging under the tomb's main chamber. Its entire body was snow-white, and it had a pair of bright and clean wings on its back. Its 4 little furry claws, big watery eyes, and its body was surrounded by wisps of six-colored divine light. So obedient! Lin Tian could not help but say these 2 words. Even Wishing Crocodile stared at it. It looks good. Very cute, Ling Yun said. It had to be said that the little guy looked really cute. If some girls saw it, they would definitely go crazy. Below the tomb, the 6-colored divine light around the little guy's body was absorbed. It raised its little head and looked at Lin Tianyi and the others. Its gaze quickly fell on Lin Tian, and suddenly its eyes lit up. After letting out a cheerful squeak, the wings on its back shook, and it instantly pounced in front of Lin Tian. Squeak! Lin Tian! The little guy's voice was childish, and it rubbed against Lin Tian's cheek. The little guy already had its own consciousness when it was still in the divine egg. Naturally, it knew Lin Tian's name. Lin Tian had a light smile on his face. He reached out and touched the little guy's soft fur. You're finally out. Squeak! The little guy squinted its eyes and looked obedient. Then, it turned its head to look at Wishing Crocodile and Ling Yun. Its big eyes were watery, and it said in a childish voice, Rogue crocodile, pervert. When the little guy was in the divine egg, it had heard Lin Tian's name for Wishing Crocodile and Ling Yun. At this time, it also greeted them in the same way and blinked its eyes. Wishing Crocodile. Being called a rogue crocodile by a little guy really made it feel very awkward. Haha, this little guy is so cute! Ling Yun laughed. He had never resisted being called a pervert. Lin Tian could not help but laugh. He felt that the little guy was very cute. Wishing Crocodile curled its lips. Ling Yun stared at the little guy and said, Since it's out, give the little guy a name. Hearing him say this, Lin Tian could not help but nod. He should indeed give the little guy a name. The little guy blinked its eyes. When it heard that he was going to give it a name, its ears pricked up and it looked straight at Lin Tian. Let's call it Little White. It's simple and direct. Wishing Crocodile said casually. Lin Tian looked at it from the corner of his eyes. Can you be more old-fashioned? The little guy nodded as if it felt the same way. Then let's call it Big White, Ling Yun said. Lin Tian was speechless. He almost couldn't help but kick him. He didn't count on these 2 guys anymore. After thinking for a while, he looked at the little guy and said, Oh, let's call it Tai Chu. How about it? In fact, he didn't know how to name it. The so-called Tai Chu was directly named after the first 2 words of the Tai Chu Immortal Ridge. However, he felt that these 2 words were quite extraordinary. Tai Chu, Ling Yun said, his eyes shining. It feels good. Wishing Crocodile also nodded. Okay. Lin Tian looked at the little guy. How is it? Okay? Yeah. The little guy cried out happily. Its big eyes narrowed into 2 small crescent moons. It was obvious that it liked this name. Lin Tianyi smiled. Then it's decided, Little Tai Chu. The little guy blinked its eyes and agreed happily. Then, it shook its wings and laid on Lin Tian's head. Lin Tian smiled and swept his gaze across the stone chamber. He glanced at the emperor corpse at the end of the stone chamber, and used the dragon burial scripture to restore the chamber to its original state. Only then did he open his mouth and say, Let's go. They had obtained the divine pulse here. Wishing Crocodile and Ling Yun had reached the Nirvana realm. The little guy had really been born. Their gains could be said to be huge. At this time, there was no need to stay here. Aren't we going to test the little guy's strength first? Ling Yun stared at the little Tai Chu. He was very concerned about this. Beside him, Wishing Crocodile's eyes were filled with a strong demonic light. Obviously, he also wanted to know this. If we want to test it, we have to go outside. Lin Tian now. Oh, you're right. This place is too narrow. Ling Yun nodded. Then, he looked at the Emperor corpse at the end of the stone chamber and said, "Kid, why don't we move that Emperor corpse away and use it reasonably? An Emperor corpse was also a divine treasure. Don't move it!" Lin Tian now. Through the green jade, he knew some things about the tomb owner. In his later years, he sacrificed his remaining lifespan to kill a great evil for thousands of souls. Such an ancient person needed to be respected. How could he be disrespectful to his corpse? He looked at the Emperor corpse at the end of the stone chamber again. Then, he turned and walked out of the stone chamber. Ling Yun looked at him suspiciously. However, he didn't ask much. He shrugged and slowly followed him out. Wishing Crocodile naturally wouldn't stay. In a flash, he left the stone chamber. Lin Tian walked out of the stone chamber. He waited for Wishing Crocodile and Ling Yun to come out. Then, he closed the stone chamber door from the outside and left. The space in the palace was a little dim. Walking in it, they could hear the footsteps of a group of people from both sides. Speaking of which, I feel that the yin qi and coldness in this palace are much weaker than when we came. Moreover, not a single ghost soldier came out to attack us. Ling Yun's expression was a little strange. It's a little strange. Wishing Crocodile nodded. Then, he seemed to think of something. He looked at the little taichu on Lin Tian's head and said, "Could it be because of this little guy? Compared to when we came in, there's now this little guy." When they came in, waves of ghost soldiers attacked them. However, there wasn't any now. Now there was a little guy. In addition, before the little guy was born, even the Nirvana-level ghost sage was afraid of it. It felt that the little guy was lying on Lin Tian's head now that it was born. Perhaps the aura it emitted scared the evil in the dark. When it said that, Ling Yun couldn't help but be moved. He looked at the little guy on Lin Tian's head and felt that it was very possible. Lin Tian glanced at them and didn't say anything. He just walked forward by himself. The footsteps from both sides of the palace were still the same. Thud, 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 thud. No ghost soldiers or other evil creatures came out to attack them. Then, very quickly, 15 minutes passed. They walked to the edge of the bronze palace and directly passed through the Tao patterns that enveloped the edge. They didn't encounter any obstruction at all. "We're out," Ling Yun couldn't help but say. Lin Tian didn't say anything. He walked towards the path to the bronze palace and prepared to leave the Taichu Immortal Ridge. Boom! Chapter 1108. The octopus-like fierce demon pounced toward them, its murderous aura surging, and its tyrannical power almost froze the surrounding space. "Damn it, this monster has been guarding outside all this time. What kind of hatred does it have?" Ling Yun stared. Lin Tian frowned. This fierce demon in front of him was not ordinary. Even though he had now advanced a small level and reached the third heaven of Nirvana, he was still far from being a match for this quasi-emperor level fierce demon. "Its self-awareness is insufficient. Don't fight it head-on, use your speed to dodge it," he said. Boom! In front of them, the murderous aura around the fierce demon's body became denser and more terrifying, and its speed also increased. In the blink of an eye, it had crossed a distance of more than 1,000 feet, stirring up sand and dust in the air. Its blood-red eyes were full of murderous intent as it stared at Lin Tian. However, in the next moment, this quasi-emperor-level fierce demon suddenly shuddered and came to a stop. Its gaze fell on the little Taichu on top of Lin Tian's head, as if it had seen the most terrifying thing. Its huge demon body could not help but tremble, as if it was a mouse that had seen a cat. For a moment, Lin Tian, Wishing Crocodile, and Ling Yun were all shocked, and each of them had a strange expression on their faces. At this time, they could clearly see what the fierce demon in front of them was afraid of, because its gaze had fallen on the little Taichu. This caused the three of them and the crocodile to involuntarily look at the little fellow. This. Ling Yun's eyes widened, and Wishing Crocodile was also shocked. A fierce demon that was comparable to a quasi-emperor level fierce demon was actually so afraid of the little fellow that it did not dare to move at all. Even Lin Tian could not help but be shocked. Although he knew that once the little fellow was born, it would definitely be extraordinary and very powerful, He did not expect it to be so exaggerated that it could frighten a quasi-emperor level fierce demon just by lying on top of his head. Yeah? The little fellow had obviously noticed the gazes of the three of them and the crocodile. Its big watery eyes blinked, and it looked somewhat puzzled and curious. It's really incredible, Wishing Crocodile said. Amazing! Ling Yun nodded and looked at Little Rascal. Speaking of which, what kind of beast is Little Rascal? This appearance. I don't think I've seen it before. Moreover, there are no records of such creatures in the ancient books. Strange, this little guy is so strong, there should be some description of him in ancient history. Lin Tian raised his head and looked at the little guy. Although he was curious, he didn't pay too much attention to it. The great wide world is so vast. The things that can be recorded in the ancient books are too limited. There's no need to worry about this problem, he said. Yeah. Little Tai Chu called out and nodded his little head in a serious manner. Lin Tianyi smiled and looked at the fierce demon in front of him. At this time, the demon was trembling even more violently, almost curling up into a ball, staring at the little Tai Chu with eyes full of fear. He paused. Originally, he wanted to let the little Tai Chu kill the other party, but after thinking about it, he decided not to. There was no need for that. After all, killing the other party wouldn't affect him much. Moreover, this fierce demon was no longer the emperor-level fierce beast from before. It had been killed, and a new life was born in its flesh shell under the passage of time. Let's go. He called out to Wishing Crocodile and Ling Yun. At this time, the octopus-like fierce demon was trembling. He and Wishing Crocodile walked past it, and nothing happened. On the other hand, the fierce demon felt little Tai Chu approaching and trembled even more violently. The fear in its eyes was even stronger. He didn't care about this. He walked steadily and then soared into the sky. Soon, he left the abyss and stepped over it. Let's go out, he said, and then walked towards the path to come here, ready to leave the Taichu Immortal Ridge. After all, he had achieved his purpose of coming here, and there was no need to stay in this place. The Taichu Immortal Ridge was surrounded by a faint black fog. The Yin Qi that gushed out from the abyss floated everywhere. The air seemed a little cold, and the soil on the ground seemed a little moist. Walking on it, there would be a sizzling sound from time to time. The speed of the group wasn't fast, but it wasn't slow either. Soon, they had walked an extremely far distance and gradually saw the figures of other cultivators. There were quite a number of them, and most of them were experts. They were carefully walking towards the depths of the Taichu Immortal Ridge with a strange light in their eyes. Obviously, they were all heading towards the so-called Emperor's tomb in the depths of the Immortal Ridge. It has been 2 months since the surging Yin Qi surged. These people are still walking towards the depths. They are really obsessed with the Emperor's tomb. However, it's a pity that they are destined to gain nothing. Ling Yun muttered. They had already been to the Bronze Palace in the depths of the Emperor's tomb. Not to mention that there were no treasures inside. Even if there were, these ordinary cultivators wouldn't be able to cross the layer of Dao pattern barrier outside the palace. Everything would be in vain. Lin Tian didn't say anything. He walked quietly at the front and slowly walked along the path towards the outside of the Taichu Immortal Ridge. That is... Lin Tian? It's that ruthless person. They came out from the depths. Some cultivators saw Lin Tian's figure. When they saw Lin Tian walk out from the depths of the Taichu Immortal Ridge, they were instantly shocked. Lin Tian didn't care at all. He didn't even look at these cultivators as he walked out of the Immortal Ridge by himself. Soon, they saw even more cultivators approaching the edge of the Taichu Immortal Ridge. Little Taichu lay on top of Lin Tian's head, looking left and right along the way. Its big eyes were filled with light, and it would babble from time to time. It seemed very happy. You're really like a child. You're so curious about everything, Ling Yun said. You're just a child to begin with. You've just been born. Lin Tian Andao. With a boom, a pitch-black demonic light slashed over from afar. It was as fast as lightning and reached its peak in the blink of an eye. Lin Tian stopped in his tracks. Golden divine light appeared around his body, and a huge aura seeped out of his body, directly shattering the demonic light. You're indeed still alive. You didn't disappoint me. If you died silently, I would be very troubled. Pure Yang Yen is not easy to find. A cold laugh sounded. Lin Tian looked up and saw a tall man standing in the distant sky. It was the young master of the Fiend God sect, the heavenly fiend puppet. That devil bastard really pisses me off. Ling Yun bared his teeth. Lin Tian looked up at this person. Do you really want to die? The heavenly fiend puppet was filled with a wild aura. The demonic light around his body surged as he approached Lin Tian step by step. Your life, and the pure yang flame, I'll take it, he sneered. With a boom, the demonic light around his body became even more intense, surging like a raging wave. It was extremely terrifying. Clang! 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 Numerous demonic sword lights appeared, exuding a terrifying murderous aura. For a time, the nearby cultivators were shocked by this aura. Many people looked in this direction. The young master of the demon god sect, heavenly devil puppet, is there. That's Lin Tian? The heavenly devil puppet seems to be targeting that Lin Tian. These two are going to fight? All the cultivators were moved. Whether it is the heavenly devil puppet or Lin Tian, they are both famous figures in the 9th heaven. They are the absolute young lords of the 10 heavens. Now these two young supreme beings were standing before their eyes, clearly about to fight. Many people were moved. Hey! The heavenly devil puppet laughed maniacally. In its eyes, there was only Lin Tian. Numerous devil swords appeared around its body and directly flew towards Lin Tiansha. In an instant, a large area of the void collapsed with cracking sounds, and the violent demonic might caused the nearby cultivators to feel fear in their hearts. Lin Tian's eyes were cold and emotionless. With a single thought, the sword of towering heaven appeared and bloomed with a blazing sword might. By the way, kid, do you mind a one-on-one fight? Let him fight a group of us alone. Wishing Crocodile narrowed its eyes and said, I like one-on-one fights. Ling Yun laughed sinisterly. Lin Tian glanced at the man and the crocodile. Up to you. As soon as he finished speaking, he took a step forward, and the heavenly sword chi around him slashed towards the heavenly devil puppet from all directions. The heavenly devil puppet laughed wildly, and the demonic aura intertwined with the heavenly devil puppet's murderous aura. It was even denser than before as it faced Lin Tian head-on. Rumbling sounds could be heard as the void began to tremble. More and more places began to rupture, and even the ground began to sink. Buzz! The void buzzed, and the demonic aura bloomed. A gray fog appeared, and with strands of lightning, it pressed towards the heavenly devil puppet. The 5 elements crocodile flashed over. Its first move was a great divine ability of the demon race. At the same time, a new sword chime sounded. More than 10 divine swords appeared behind Ling Yun. They were all condensed from divine power, and they were all intertwined with different colors. The sharp sword aura was not much weaker than Lin Tian's heavenly sword chi. Suddenly, the void around the heavenly devil puppet was sealed, and 3 different kinds of killing forces pressed towards the heavenly devil puppet. The heavenly devil puppet's face sank. You boom! The 3 kinds of killing lights fell majestically, shaking the sky. Among them, Lin Tian had reached the 3rd heaven of Nirvana realm from the 2nd heaven of Nirvana realm. His battle strength had increased greatly, and the heavenly sword chi he used was naturally stronger. Wishing Crocodile had entered the Nirvana realm for the 2nd time. In addition, he was a primeval beast, and his battle strength was not much weaker than those of the same level. When he used the demon clan's magical power, his power was naturally not to be underestimated. Ling Yun's sword down magical power was also very extraordinary. It was not much weaker than the heavenly sword scripture. At this moment, he used more than 10 sword lights, which was extremely powerful. As such, when the 3 kinds of powerful forces merged together, it was naturally extremely terrifying. It immediately crushed all the demonic swords outside the heavenly devil puppet's body and crushed all the demonic light outside his body. Group battle? Do you think I'm afraid of you? The heavenly devil puppet shouted. His eyes were ferocious, and the demonic light outside his body became even more terrifying. Nonsense, this is obviously a one-on-one battle. Wishing Crocodile sneered. The wings on his back shook, and another demon clan magical power rolled out. You alone, against the three of us. Yes, this is a one-on-one battle. Ling Yun chuckled and used more killing swords to slash forward. Now that he had reached the Nirvana realm, coupled with the magical sword down magical power, his combat strength was naturally not bad. Lin Tian raised his hand, and dozens of divine elephants appeared. Each of them suppressed a direction and fell on the heavenly devil puppet. The three kinds of powerful forces were stronger, and directly crushed all directions. Bang! Lin Tian waved his fist, and it landed on the heavenly devil puppet's face. It directly smashed half of his face, and blood splattered everywhere. Lin! Poof! Ling Yun's sword light arrived. Seizing the opportunity, one of the swords directly pierced through the heavenly devil puppet's chest. Come, have a taste of Master Crocodile's Great Five Elements technique! Wishing Crocodile was the most ruthless. He directly used the Great Five Elements' magical power and almost tore the heavenly devil puppet apart. Ah! The heavenly devil puppet roared. The demonic light surged, and his face became even more ferocious. Scream! Scream even louder! However, even if you scream until your throat is broken, I don't think you can change the situation. Ling Yun chuckled, and dozens of divine swords pressed down again. The heavenly devil puppet's eyes were full of murderous intent. He stared at Ling Yun. And? Swoosh! Lin Tian stepped on the yin and yang liang, and dozens of divine elephants opened a path. Another punch fell, landing heavily on the heavenly devil puppet's chest. With a poof, half of the heavenly devil puppet's body exploded. He was in a sorry state. Awesome! Continue to kill him! Wishing Crocodile laughed, and the murderous demon light unceremoniously greeted him. For a moment, the space was in chaos, and large cracks continued to spread. In the distance, many cultivators looked over, and they were all dumbfounded. They are actually ganging up on the heavenly devil puppet! They are all Nirvana Realm Masters! The heavenly devil puppet of the demon god sect is vomiting blood continuously. They originally thought that it would be a one-on-one battle between the heavenly devil puppet and Lin Tian, but they did not expect the scene to be like this. Chapter 1109. Within the Taichu Immortal Ridge, the heavenly devil puppet could be said to be in an extremely sorry state. It was besieged by the joint forces of Lin Tian, the five-element alligator, and Ling Yun, and it was heavily injured time and time again. Its body shattered time and time again, causing all the nearby cultivators to stare with wide eyes. Many people's hearts palpitated. The young master of the heavenly devil sect, one of the future giants of the 10 Directions heavenly territory, was now being beaten by 2 people and a crocodile. Damn it! The heavenly devil puppet roared wildly, its demonic power surging as it roared again and again. There was no doubt that it was very powerful, but facing Lin Tian, Wishing Crocodile, and Ling Yun at the same time, it seemed a little inadequate. It was completely suppressed by the 2 people and the crocodile. Boom! As it roared, its expression became even more ferocious, and it was filled with a vicious aura, as if a great demon had really appeared in the world. Lin Tianling snorted and took a step forward. He raised the Chaos Emperor fist and directly pressed it down. Boom! For a moment, the sky trembled violently, and the void collapsed. Its power was terrifying. With a swoosh, the demonic light outside the heavenly devil puppet's body was all shattered, and it was sent flying by Lin Tian's punch. Try Lord Crocodile's 1000 water kill! Wishing Crocodile spoke and activated the great Tao of water, forming a large water-killing light curtain that pressed down on the heavenly devil puppet from all directions. Try Lord Ling's cutting sword slash. Ling Yun spoke and activated the sword Dao divine art with his cutting Dao, slashing out a dozen killing divine swords of different colors. The crocodile and the man laughed sinisterly. With Lin Tian as the main attacker, they kept hitting the black brick from left and right. All kinds of killing moves were mercilessly greeted the heavenly devil puppet, causing the entire area around the heavenly devil puppet to become a land of destruction. Buzz! Lin Tian waved the Chaos Emperor fist, supporting dozens of divine images that enveloped the surroundings, and the space in all directions rumbled. The three forces combined, and with a poof, it immediately caused the heavenly devil puppet to suffer, and half of its body directly exploded. Take his life while he's down. Boy Lin, little pervert, go! Whooshing crocodile shouted. With a boom, it flapped the wings on its back and used the great five elements art again. It slashed apart a surging wave, bringing along a destructive storm that directly covered the heavenly devil puppet in the center of the storm. Ling Yun laughed sinisterly. He's here! Of course! Then, 49 deadly swords appeared behind him. Every single one of them was extremely dominating and violent. Lin Tian's expression was indifferent. He didn't say anything unnecessary. He directly summoned the seal of the four symbols and pressed forward. Scram! The heavenly demon puppet roared, and his body instantly reassembled. Then, with a clang, a black cauldron rushed out of his body. It was engraved with dense runes, and as soon as it appeared, it exuded an incomparably powerful saintly aura. This is a saint weapon! Furthermore, it's a mid-grade saint weapon! A cultivator exclaimed. Many Nirvana realm experts of the older generation did not possess a mid-grade sacred artifact. When these cultivators saw it, they were naturally shocked. As the future master of the Heavenly Devil Divine Sect, the Heavenly Devil Puppet is indeed protected by such a precious weapon. Many people were shocked. Boom! The Heavenly Devil Puppet summoned the Black Cauldron. Saintly aura surged, and demonic light surged, tearing apart the killing light released by Lin Tian and the others. The pure Yang flame is mine! All of you must die! He stared at Lin Tian and the others, full of wild and domineering aura. Then, with a boom, the black cauldron he summoned became even more terrifying. The surging saintly aura directly pressed down. You think you're the only one with a saint weapon? Whooshing crocodile sneered and directly raised a long sword. It was also a saint weapon obtained in the 8th heaven. He summoned this long sword and used the great Tao of water, slashing out a sky full of water blades. Humph! Ling Yin sneered and summoned a short dagger. It was also a flawless saint weapon obtained in the 8th heaven. For a moment, dense killing aura intertwined from the short dagger and pressed down on the black cauldron of the heavenly devil puppet. This saint weapon, they have one too? Although it's a low-grade saint weapon, the combination of the two is not much worse than a mid-grade saint weapon. Many cultivators' expressions changed. Then, in the next moment, an even more terrifying saintly aura spread. Lin Tian took out the saint murdering bow and directly pulled the bowstring. Spiritual chi rolled in from all directions, and black lightning appeared one after another. Even the phantom of the demonic dragon appeared, roaring at the sky and erupting with terrifying killing aura. After he released the bowstring, it directly rushed toward the heavenly devil puppet. Crack! 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 The space in all directions continued to collapse, and the void turbulence overflowed. This is a pinnacle high-grade saint weapon! That Lin Tian actually has such a precious weapon? Who the hell is he? What's his origin? In the distance, all the cultivators were shocked. As one of the top forces in the 10th heaven, the Heavenly Devil Divine Sect looked down on the entire 10th heaven and dominated a region. The supreme of the younger generation, the future ruler, only had a mid-grade saint weapon. However, Lin Tian actually had a top-grade high-grade saint weapon. Many people were stunned. Boom! Lin Tian used the saint murdering bow, and the saint murdering arrow arrived in the blink of an eye. Together with the power of the whooshing crocodile, and Ling Yun's saint weapon, it closed in on the heavenly devil puppet in the blink of an eye. With a crack, it pierced through the heavenly devil puppet's black crow golden cauldron and sent the puppet flying. Again! His voice was indifferent. Then, without any hesitation, he directly pulled the bowstring of the Saint murdering bow. It was still in the shape of a full moon. In the blink of an eye, the Saint murdering arrow was formed, and the mighty black lightning and the phantom of the demonic dragon rushed toward the heavenly devil puppet. Before the heavenly devil puppet could stabilize its body, it met the arrow head-on. Its expression changed immediately. You! Puff! The Saint murdering arrow was as fast as lightning, and it directly pierced through the heavenly devil puppet, tearing its body into pieces and staining the sky with blood. Hey! Kill! Whooshing Crocodile laughed sinisterly. It did not hold back at all. With a clang, it activated the Saint-level long saber with all its strength, slashing down sharp saber lights that filled the sky. On the other side, Ling Yun was also full of energy, activating the short dagger with all his strength. At the same time, he activated the cutting Great Dao and the piercing Great Dao. Suddenly, the two destructive forces pressed down, bombarding the heavenly devil puppet before its body of flesh and blood could be formed. Puff! The bloody mist dispersed, and the heavenly devil puppet's body was directly shattered into a bloody mist. Ah! The heavenly devil puppet let out a crazy roar, and its demonic power surged. Lin Tian was expressionless. Using the high-grade Saint murdering bow in his hand as a sword, he slashed out a sword light that fell toward the heavenly devil puppet. Then, he once again pulled the bowstring to the shape of a full moon, and sacrificed his own nameless Great Dao nomological principle to gather the most powerful Great Dao killing arrow, directly locking onto the heavenly devil puppet's divine soul. He released the bowstring, and suddenly, with a whoosh, the sharp Great Dao killing arrow turned into an inextinguishable light and rushed forward. The entire space collapsed. The vast surface of the earth kept collapsing. It could be said to be a fatal arrow. This arrow, it can't be avoided. The heavenly devil puppet can't escape. The young master of the demon god sect, the future master, is going to die here? All the cultivators were horrified. Boom! The Great Dao killing arrow was extremely fierce, and its speed was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, it was already in front of the heavenly devil puppet. However, at this moment, an incomparably fierce aura emerged from the distance. It was a middle-aged man. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of the heavenly devil puppet. His demonic power was earth-shattering, and he slapped towards the Great Dao killing arrow cast by Lin Tian. Whoosh! With a crisp sound, the Great Dao killing arrow was directly shattered. This is Yiluo Shao, the third elder of the heavenly devil divine sect. Quasi-emperor! This person actually came? In the distance, many cultivators who were watching the battle recognized the person. Obviously, the other party was very famous in the ninth heaven. Lin Tian frowned. He naturally felt the strength of the person who came. The Emperor's aura on the other party was very strong, more than twice as strong as the octopus monster. Immediately, he ordered Wishing Crocodile and Ling Yun to retreat, but his expression didn't change. Gulp! Behind Yiluo Shao, the third elder of the demon god sect, Tianma Lai quickly reconstructed his body. In the blink of an eye, his body was reconstructed. Young master, are you okay? Yiluo Shao asked. Not long ago, the two gray-robed elders who had accompanied the heavenly devil puppet had died. The heavenly devil divine sect had sensed this, and because he was worried about the heavenly devil puppet's safety, he had come here. Now, the heavenly devil puppet was in danger. Very bad! The heavenly devil puppet's eyes were cold, and the wildness on its body was even stronger. Yiluo Shao raised his head and looked at Lin Tian. His eyes narrowed slightly, and the faint emperor's aura surged, powerful and oppressive. He took a step forward, and the invisible emperor's aura intertwined, evolving into a terrifying windscreen as he walked towards Lin Tian. Obviously, he was going to attack Lin Tian. Stop! He is my prey! The heavenly devil puppet's eyes were fierce, and it was still wild and domineering. It stared straight at Lin Tian now. You take care of the man and crocodile with him, those two lowly ants. As for him, I will take care of him personally. Luo Shao nodded and stared at Wuxing Crocodile and Ling Yun. He stepped forward, and the faint Emperor's aura intertwined like a hurricane. At the same time, the heavenly devil puppet stared at Lin Tian, and the demonic light on its body intertwined. This, a boundary emperor! How do we block it? That Lin Tian and his companions are in trouble. In the distance, a group of cultivators were shocked. A boundary emperor was much more terrifying than a half-step emperor. It was someone who was only a small step away from entering the Chaos Emperor realm. Lin Tian looked at the heavenly devil puppet and then at Luo Shao. Seeing the other party pressing towards Wuxing Crocodile and Ling Yun, although he could feel the terrifying emperor's aura from the other party, he wasn't afraid at all. His expression remained calm. Heh! Wuxing Crocodile sneered, and he was very calm. Beside him, Ling Yun was also very calm. Boom! 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 At this moment, suddenly, extremely far away, from 3 different directions, tyrannical divine power emerged. Lin Tian tilted his head and saw 3 figures appear from the east, west, and north. Emperor's aura intertwined in each direction, and their speed was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, they appeared here. Chapter 11:10. 3 people rushed over from 3 different directions. A total of 9 people appeared at the same time, and their gazes all fell on Lin Tian. In the east, the leader was a man in black. He was tall and slender, and his eyes were indifferent. A strong yin and yang aura intertwined around his body. In the west, the leader was also a man. His face was sharp, and his eyes were very sharp. In the north, the leader was a man in gray. He looked very young, but his eyes were very deep. His soul power was extremely strong, and there was a force of array around him. It was obvious that he cultivated array techniques and was very powerful. In these 3 positions, 2 elders stood behind each of the 3 men, and they were all exuding a faint emperor's aura. They were all boundary emperors. This is the saint of the Yin-Yang sect, the sword son of the immortal Sword Island, and the divine son of the primordial shrine. These 3. Aren't they the future leaders of their respective sects? They're as strong as the heavenly demon puppet. They're all young paragons. Behind them are all boundary emperors. 6 boundary emperors. What's happening all of a sudden? Why are they all here? They seem to be looking at that Lin Tian. They're here for that Lin Tian? In this place, all the cultivators were shocked. Luo Shao of the heavenly demon sect looked at the 3 people and narrowed his eyes. The pitch-black demonic light around the heavenly demon puppet also swept its gaze in 3 directions. Its eyes fell on the Yin-Yang saint, the immortal sword son, and the primordial divine son with clear battle intent. In the 3 directions, the Yin-Yang saint and the other 2 paragons also noticed the heavenly demon puppet. They obviously knew about the heavenly demon puppet, and their gazes turned cold. Some were indifferent, some were sharp, and some were deep. At the same time, Lin Tian was also looking at the 3 people. From the discussions of the cultivators here, he already knew the identities of the 3 people. He glanced at the Yin-Yang saint and the immortal sword son, and then his gaze fell on the primordial divine son. This side belonged to the primordial shrine. He had a grudge with this faction. Kid, they're all hostile. They're all here for you. Wuxing Crocodile narrowed his eyes. I can tell. Lin Tian was very calm. He stood where he was and stared at the Desolation Shrine's Shensi, and the 2 boundary emperors behind him with a cold smile. The desolate divine child clearly noticed Lin Tian's gaze, and so did the 2 quasi-emperors behind him. They both let out a cold snort, and an extremely dense divine power surrounded them. Eternal killing array, hand it over. The primordial divine child stared at Lin Tian. The soul power fluctuations around his body were extremely shocking, like raging waves. Eternal killing array? What's that? Is it the great formation he used to kill the 9 half-step emperors of the great extinguishing god dynasty? Many cultivators were puzzled by this place. Most of these cultivators were ordinary individual cultivators, or they came from other ordinary cultivation sects. Naturally, they did not know about the eternal killing formation, because there was no record of it in the ancient books. The shrine of the ancients wants to snatch Lin Tian's. Someone whispered. His voice was very soft, and he did not finish his sentence. He was afraid that the people from the shrine of the ancients would hear him and cause trouble. At the same time, the heavenly demon puppet, Iluo Shao, the yin-yang saint's son, and the immortal sword's son were all moved. Obviously, as the core figures of the 9 top forces, they had heard of the eternal killing array and knew a little about it. Lin Tian glanced at the desolate divine child and smiled indifferently. Then he looked at the yin-yang saint's son and the immortal sword's son. The desolate divine child's eyes narrowed. After he spoke, Lin Tian only glanced at him indifferently and did not respond. Instead, he looked directly at the yin-yang saint's son and the immortal sword's son. This attitude made him very unhappy. Lin Tian saw the change in the desolate divine child's expression, but he did not care at all. His expression remained calm. He looked at the yin-yang saint's son and the immortal sword's son and said, "What about you? Why are you looking for me?" He could feel that these people did not come with good intentions, but he did not care at all. The yin-yang saint's son and the immortal sword's son both looked at Lin Tian. One had an indifferent expression, while the other had sharp eyes. The yin-yang saint's son said, "Give the Sun Heart Sutra to my sect. In exchange, my sect will give you other treasures. Give the Sky Sword Scripture to my island. The Immortal Sword Island will also give you some treasures in exchange." The Immortal Sword's son said. Back then, Lin Tian used the eternal killing array to kill the 9 half-step emperors of the Wanmi divine dynasty. In the process, he also used the Sun Heart Sutra and the Sky Sword Scripture, which were recognized by the experts of the Yin-Yang Saint sect and the Immortal Sword Island. One of the two sects cultivated Yin and Yang, while the other cultivated Sword Dao. The Sun Heart Sutra was the pure Yang Dao, while the Sky Sword Scripture was the Sword Dao of killing. They were both created by the 9 celestial venerables. Naturally, the two sects were interested in them, just like the desolate shrine's desire for the eternal killing array. Therefore, the two sects sent experts to get the Sun Heart Sutra and the Sky Sword Scripture. When all the cultivators here heard this, their gazes descended onto Lin Tian in unison, and all of them turned pale with fright. Sun Heart Sutra? Sky Sword Scripture? He has these two celestial venerables' ancient scriptures at the same time? Isn't this the supreme ancient technique created by the solar celestial venerables and the sword venerables? The cultivators were all shocked. As ordinary cultivators, they didn't know about the eternal killing array because there were almost no records of it in the ancient books. However, the Sun Heart Sutra and the Sky Sword Scripture had a lot of descriptions. Hearing the Yin-Yang Saint's son and the Immortal Sword's son's words, they were all shocked. Even the Sky Demon Split's eyes turned cold. He stared at Lin Tian now fiercely. "You really know a lot." Lin Tian glanced at him coldly, then looked at the Yin-Yang Saint's son and the Immortal Sword's son. "What if I don't want to exchange?" he asked. The Yin-Yang Saint's son and the Immortal Sword's son were very calm. Their expressions didn't change much. "I advise you to choose an exchange. This is beneficial to both of us. You can obtain some additional treasures, and my Yin-Yang sect won't have to waste time to make a move on you. It's a win-win situation. You should know that with your strength, you won't be able to fight back against the two boundary emperors behind me." The Yin-Yang Saint's son said. "Same here." The Immortal Sword's son said. The two young paragons looked at Lin Tian calmly as if everything was under their control. "Boundary emperors? I'm really scared." Lin Tian looked at the two of them indifferently. This expression made the Yin-Yang Saint's son and the Immortal Sword's son's faces turn dark. They were very dissatisfied with Lin Tian's attitude. "Hand over the eternal killing array, and we can leave you a complete corpse." The divine son of the desolate shrine's faction spoke. Behind him, the two boundary emperors looked at him with cold eyes. Their faction already had a deep grudge with Lin Tian. It was impossible to resolve. Hand over the pure yang flame, and then I'll kill you slowly. The heavenly demon puppet looked wild. He took a step forward. The demonic aura around his body was extremely strong and domineering. This caused all the cultivators in the area to be shocked. That Lin Tian isn't he dead meat? Someone swallowed his saliva. In this place, the Yin-Yang sect and the Immortal Sword Island could spare Lin Tian's life as long as he handed over the ancient scripture. However, the Heavenly Demon sect and the Desolate Shrine wanted Lin Tian's life no matter what. These two factions had boundary emperors here. Lin Tian couldn't possibly fight against them. On the other side, the Wishing Crocodile and Ling Yun looked at the Heavenly Demon puppet, the Desolate Divine Sun, the Yin-Yang Saint Sun, and the Immortal Sword Sun. They couldn't help but smile, but it was a little sinister. This bunch of idiots came out to court death. The Wishing Crocodile bared his teeth. Heh! Ling Yun sneered. On top of Lin Tian's head, the little Taichu looked up at the Yin-Yang Saint Sun and the others. Then, it lay down again. Lin Tian glanced at the Heavenly Demon puppet, the Desolate Divine Sun, the Yin-Yang Saint Sun, and the Immortal Sword Sun. His expression remained calm. The Yin-Yang Saint Sun and the Immortal Sword Sun's eyes fell on Lin Tian. Compared to before, their expressions were much more serious. Lin Tian's calmness made them very uncomfortable. Are you going to hand it over or not? The Immortal Sword Sun's eyes were sharp. The Yin-Yang Saint Sun stared at Lin Tian. His eyes were much colder. Answer me. This is the last chance I'm giving you. Lin Tian looked at the two of them. Then, he looked at the Heavenly Demon sect and the Desolate Shrine sect. He couldn't help but smile coldly. I'm standing right here. What do you want? If you think you can get it, then come and get it yourselves, he said. His words were very calm, but they were mixed with a strong sense of indifference. He completely looked down on the Yin-Yang Saint Sun and the others. Naturally, this caused the gazes of the people from the four great factions to sink. All of them were filled with coldness. Suppress him! A quasi-emperor behind the Yin-Yang Saint Sun said coldly. The emperor directly intertwined. At the same time, the quasi-emperors from the Heavenly Demon sect, Iluo Shao, the two quasi-emperors from the Immortal Sword Island, and the two quasi-emperors from the Desolate Shrine all stared at Lin Tian. Their eyes were cold and merciless. Leave him to me! The Heavenly Demon puppet took another step forward. Demonic light surged around him. He stared coldly at Lin Tian and asked Iluo Shao to retreat. He was a wild and domineering man. Naturally, he was also a proud man. Previously, he had been severely injured by Lin Tian several times. He wanted to tear Lin Tian apart with his own hands. Elders, please retreat for now. Just seal the surroundings. I'm very interested in the person who controls the eternal killing formation. The Desolate Shrine sect's Divine Sun took a step forward. At the same time, the Yin-Yang Saint Sun and the Immortal Sword Sun also took a step forward from the other two directions. They asked the quasi-emperors from their respective factions to seal the surrounding space and not move. Clearly, they were going to personally take action. Chapter 11:11. Lin Tian looked at the Heavenly Demon puppet, the Desolate God Child, the Yin-Yang Saint Sun, and the Immortal Sword Sun with a calm expression. You want to fight with me? He looked at the four of them. The Heavenly Demon puppet's eyes were wild. I told you that I would tear you apart with my own hands and take the pure yang flame from your body. I also want to take the eternal killing formation myself, the Desolate God Child said. The Yin-Yang Saint Sun's body was surrounded by a faint black light. The Immortal Sword Sun's eyes were sharp. Although he did not speak, he was looking at Lin Tian. Lin Tian smiled coldly and stepped forward. Very good. Come on then. The Yin-Yang Saint Sun and the others' faces darkened. Lin Tian's arrogance made them very uncomfortable. Kid, there's no need, the Wishing Crocodile said. That's right. It's too much effort. Ling Yun rolled his eyes. They had a little guy on their side that could even frighten quasi-emperors with one look. They felt that there was no need for Lin Tian to fight. Lin Tian shook his head with his back facing the man and the crocodile. The 4 people in front of him were all young supremes of the 10 Directions celestial domain. They were from the same generation as him. Since they were destined to be enemies, he naturally wanted to fight with all 4 of them. He was a cultivator. He wanted to become stronger. On this path, battles were inevitable. There were things that he had to experience. Go over there and stay for a while, he said to the little Taichu above his head. The little guy responded in a childish voice. Then, it flapped its wings and flew to the side of Ling Yun and the wishing crocodile. What is that? So cute! In the distance, a female cultivator saw the little Taichu. Her eyes lit up and her cheeks blushed. Lin Tian's gaze fell on the yin-yang Saint Sun and the others. Come on! He walked up to the sky. Every step he took made the void tremble. Many cultivators were terrified by his powerful blood and qi. Many of them could not help but gasp. Humph! With a cold snort, the heavenly devil puppet and the other 3 simultaneously leaped into the air. For a moment, 4 powerful waves of divine power surged. Demonic light, dark light, formation power, and sword will shook the heavens. This, so strong! Such an aura at such a young age. He is worthy of being called a young supremacy. The young paragon of the 10 Directions celestial domain. Many cultivators felt their hearts palpitate. Lin Tian stood alone in the sky. The black hair in front of his forehead danced in the wind. His gaze was calm, but it was also very sharp. Kill you! The heavenly demon puppet was the first to attack. The sky was filled with boundless demonic light, as if a demon had descended upon the world. At this moment, the aura he emitted was much stronger than before. The entire sky instantly darkened. The terrifying aura caused many cultivators in the distance to almost fall to the ground. The world seemed to be about to collapse. Lin Tian's eyes were indifferent. He clenched his right fist and punched out with the primal Chaos Emperor's fist. Crack! The sky was shattered by him on the spot, and the faint roar of a dragon could be heard. Kill! The heavenly demon puppet roared, and the demonic light around him grew stronger. At this moment, the 2 of them used powerful offensive saint techniques. They were both sent flying, and the world shook violently. Lin Tian stabilized his body in an instant. The yin and yang ho flashed, leaving afterimages behind with each step. In the blink of an eye, he approached the heavenly demon puppet and punched him in the chest. With a poof, his fist penetrated the heavenly demon puppet's chest. Dazzling blood splattered everywhere. You can't do it! Lin Tian Andao. His fist penetrated the heavenly demon puppet's chest. The power of his fist shook, and the heavenly demon puppet's physical body shattered on the spot. Roar! The heavenly demon splitter roared, and his demonic body instantly reassembled. He performed the demonic path's great technique again, evolving the essence of the profound meaning, and pounced on Lin Tian. Lin Tian performed the primal Chaos Emperor's fist. Fist light filled the sky, and the entire sky was included in the fist momentum. Dong! 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 The 2 of them collided alone, and terrifying shockwaves were created. With a poof, Lin Tian's fist landed on the heavenly demon puppet's body again, and half of his body was shattered. However, at the same time, the heavenly demon puppet's demonic blade hand also landed on Lin Tian. It pierced through Lin Tian's chest, bringing out a large amount of blood. Lin Tian's expression was cold, and he did not care about his injuries at all. He grabbed the heavenly demon puppet's arm that had pierced through his chest and crushed it on the spot. The heavenly demon puppet roared. The demonic flames on his body pulsed, and his wounds healed instantly. Demonic light flashed in his eyes, and his ferocity was extremely terrifying. The pure yang flame is destined to be mine! He roared, and his demonic power grew stronger. Fighting one-on-one with Lin Tian, he was no longer as flustered as when he was besieged. His every move was filled with demonic light. Lin Tianling snorted. You want it? Here you go! Using the Nirvana Sun technique, his wounds healed quickly, and he continued to press down with his Emperor Fist. Subsequently, at the same time, blazing pure yang flames surged out from within his body and scorched the entire sky. Instantly, it caused the group of cultivators that were watching the battle from extremely far away to feel their hearts palpitate. Even the experts of the senior generation that were strong at the initial stage of the rebirth realm trembled as if their bodies were about to melt. Is this the legendary divine fire, pure yang flame? What a terrifying heat! If an ordinary Nirvana realm cultivator were to take it head-on, they would definitely be burned to death. Many cultivators swallowed their saliva. Dong! Lin Tian waved his Emperor Fist, and the vast golden pure yang flame enveloped the heavenly demon splitter, leaving him no way out. The heavenly demon puppet roared, and all kinds of powerful killing techniques in the heavenly demon art were displayed. Demonic light covered the entire area. Rumble! Finally, with a loud bang, the void in all directions collapsed, and everything ceased to exist. With a bang, the heavenly demon puppet's figure flew out, and a mouthful of essence blood gushed out of his mouth. As his body flew out, the golden pure yang flame immediately surged up and drowned him. Ah! The heavenly demon puppet roared. Demonic light rolled, and he struggled to break free. One of his arms was burned, and he couldn't regenerate it for a while. That Lin Tian is on top. So powerful! All the cultivators were shocked. Buzz! The void buzzed, and the formation patterns intertwined. At this moment, the desolate divine child moved. Extremely powerful spiritual energy intertwined around his body, and like a rock spreading its wings, he immediately appeared beside Lin Tian. The 10-direction formation surged and pressed down mightily. In an instant, the entire void seemed to be sealed, and the dense formation patterns emitted all kinds of mysterious power. Lin Tian raised his left hand and hit with the Emperor Fist and the pure yang flame. With a bang, he was knocked back 10 feet away, and his arm went numb. Peak 8th Stage Array Manipulator. His voice was cold. You control the eternal killing formation, so you do know a lot. You can see the depth of the formation at a glance. Not bad, not bad. The desolate divine child's eyes were deep. With a buzzing sound, even more formation runes appeared beside him. They were densely packed together, shining with multicolored light and surging soul power. In an instant, the void around Lin Tian seemed to have solidified. All kinds of killing domains intertwined, and all kinds of terrifying illusions evolved. Even the color of the sky changed. A shocking black vortex appeared, as if a heavenly tribulation was brewing. Bolts of dazzling lightning intertwined in it. There were all kinds of colors, and the momentum was shocking. When this scene appeared, many cultivators were even more frightened. This kind of killing momentum was really a little terrifying. Not bad! In terms of formation Dao, this little brat might be a little stronger than Brat Lin. Whooshing Crocodile's expression turned serious. Very powerful! Lingyan said. Rumbling sounds could be heard as the sky was covered in formation patterns, shaking the sky. The ultimate killing formation belongs to me, the desolate divine palace. The desolate divine child said. With a rumble, all kinds of formation patterns surged. The killing light, terrifying illusions, and the vortex of lightning pressed toward Lin Tian. This was a terrifying attack. The dense formation patterns suppressed all directions. After you die, I'll burn it for you. When the desolate divine palace is destroyed, I'll burn it for the desolate divine palace. Lin Tian's voice was calm. Facing the formation patterns in the sky, he was fearless. Using the pure yang flame to protect his body, he then activated the Divine One Soul spell. A wave of soul power that was not weaker than the desolate divine child surged out. As his 5 fingers danced, the dense formation patterns appeared one by one. There were sealing formation patterns, immortal thunder killing patterns, sealing divine patterns, and illusory mysterious patterns. Light shot into the sky. As soon as these formation patterns appeared, they collided with the formation patterns of the desolate divine child in the blink of an eye. This, his formation controlling technique, is also so strong? He can inscribe so many killing formation patterns in an instant. Many cultivators were shocked. Further away, the two boundary emperors from the desolate divine palace were even more shocked. They looked at Lin Tian's inscribing technique with strange expressions. That's the long-lost 5-dragon god flash inscribing technique. He actually knows this precious technique. The two boundary emperors were shocked. The 5-dragon divine flash could increase the speed and precision of engraving arrays by several times. It was a top-level array technique. Even their desolate shrine didn't have anyone who knew how to engrave arrays, but Lin Tian actually knew how to do it. Boom! In front of him, dense formation runes collided with each other. Sizzling sounds rang out as the void rumbled. Then, after 10 breaths, with a bang, the desolate divine child was sent flying by Lin Tian's leg. Blood floated in the void, a little dazzling. Not enough, not enough! Lin Tian's voice was cold. The desolate god-child's face darkened. Ever since he started cultivating, this was the first time someone had spoken to him in such a manner, saying that he was not good enough. Most importantly, the person who said this was from the same generation as him. Arrogant! He growled, and more inscriptions appeared around his body, and his momentum became stronger. He's mine! With a cold shout, the heavenly demon puppet stepped over, and the demonic light around his body became more blazing and fierce. With 2 swoosh sounds, the two of them closed in on Lin Tian at the same time. They surrounded Lin Tian from left and right, using all kinds of strange techniques. Lin Tian's eyes were cold, and he was not afraid at all. With pure yang flames protecting his body, he waved the Chaos Emperor fist at the heavenly demon puppet with his right hand, and the 5-dragon god flash inscribing technique at the desolate divine child with his left hand. Clang! The sword cry was ear-piercing and exceptionally tyrannical. The undying sword child moved. His body was like a heavenly sword, shaking all directions. He drew out a dazzling sword radiance that was mixed with fierceness and coldness, directly pressing towards the space between Lin Tian's brows. Chapter 11-12. The immortal swordsman and the yin-yang saint moved at the same time. Their swords were sharp, and the light of the moon was intimidating. The entire space was trembling. The immortal swordsman's sword light cut through the sky, and the yin-yang saint's black vortex devoured everything. They were both killing divine arts. None of these brats are easy to deal with, the wishing crocodile said. Boom! The dome of heaven shook, and many cultivators almost fell from the ground. Lin Tian fought with the desolate god-child and the heavenly demon puppet. Emperor fists bombarded, the sun was like an ocean, and formation patterns surrounded him. The battle was extremely intense. Even so, everything around him was still covered by his divine sense. He did not panic at all when the immortal sword sun and the yin-yang saint sun charged at him. His expression was cold and calm, without the slightest fluctuation. Clang! The sound of swords intertwined, and a dazzling sword light rushed out of his body. It flashed and shattered, facing the immortal swordsman. At the same time, he activated the Sun Heart Sutra to the extreme. Golden divine light flashed, and together with the divination divine art, a golden vortex was formed, facing the yin-yang saint's black vortex. In the blink of an eye, all kinds of killing lights collided. The two types of sword light exploded, and the golden and black vortexes roared, directly tearing apart the surrounding space. Spatial turbulence flowed out without any restraint. It's indeed very powerful, the yin-yang saint said. With a buzz, his right hand was as black as ink. He slapped down with the great yin-yang hand, the divine art of the Saint Yin-yang sect. As the great yin-yang hand was formed, a huge hand appeared. The vast power of yin and yang pressed down on Lin Tian. Lin Tian's expression was indifferent, and he didn't say anything. The Sun Heart Sutra was activated to the extreme in the blink of an eye. He also slapped out, turning into a huge golden hand to support the Chaos Emperor fist. It faced the yin-yang saint's great yin-yang hand. The two palms met, creating a sky full of lightning. Divine light and hurricanes swept out in all directions. Slash! A cold voice rang out. The immortality saint stepped forward, and a divine sword appeared in his hand. It buzzed as it slashed toward Lin Tian. This was a simple slash, but the power it contained was ingenious and sharp. It was comparable to a great magical power. Lin Tian's movements were simple. He directly swung his fist. Golden divine light surged as he met the attack head-on. Clang! His fist landed on his opponent's divine sword, and a metallic sound rang out, shattering a large area of space. It was also at this time that the heavenly devil puppet leaped over, its body surging with devilish light as it punched at Lin Tian. With a boom, the sky trembled as the fist descended, as if a sacred drum of the devil race had been struck. Buzz! As the power of the matrix intertwined, dense matrix patterns appeared around the desolate divine child. At the same time, other divine lights gushed out and pressed down on Lin Tian. The yin-yang saint sun and the immortal sword sun charged forward together. Violent shockwaves surged out as the four experts attacked at the same time. That kind of power was not to be underestimated. Just a simple attack was enough to shake the surroundings, causing many cultivators to feel their hearts palpitate. They felt as if their internal organs had turned cold at this moment. Those four, are actually together, four young supreme beings, they actually. The crowd of cultivators trembled. Whooshing Crocodile and Ling Yun stared at the sky, their eyes slightly focused. These four are all fierce characters. Can this brat fight four of them at once? Ling Yun frowned. There's nothing to worry about. So what if he can't? The outcome won't change, and victory will always be on our side. Whooshing Crocodile glanced at little Taichu and said. Ling Yun relaxed his frown and chuckled. That's true. Boom! In the sky, all kinds of divine light surged and rumbled. Devilish light, dark light, sword chi, divine fire, matrix patterns, and all kinds of powers intertwined, colliding into bolts of lightning. The desolate divine child, the heavenly devil puppet, the yin-yang saint sun, and the immortal sword sun, the four young supreme beings, were all attacking Lin Tian separately. They did not have any trace of cooperation, and they were all fighting in their own way. Each of them had the strength to suppress one side, and each of them had the qualifications to be respected among their peers. Each of their moves and attacks sent chills down the spines of many cultivators. Fujin! The desolate divine child said coldly. Dense matrix patterns intertwined, turning into a square millstone that covered all directions. This chapter is not finished, please turn the page. Lin Tian snorted and activated the Tiani Soul technique. He also activated a sky full of matrix patterns, and he used the 5 Dragon God Flash to carve them out. The precision and power of the matrix were extremely strong, and he faced the desolate divine child head-on. At the same time, the divine light outside his body shook, and the sky full of golden flames swayed out, burning all directions. He used this pure yang flame to cover the other 3 people, and then he activated the heavenly sword scripture. Dense sword light appeared in an instant, and with a sonorous sound, it slashed toward the 3 powerful cultivators together. Boom! This was a shocking collision. The 5 powerful cultivators were fighting, and all kinds of killing lights intertwined, directly destroying a part of the void. This kind of collision was deadlocked for more than 10 breaths, and the power was terrifying. Then, with a bang, Lin Tian's figure was swept out. Blood flowed out of his mouth, and his body was full of cracks. Fighting 1 against 4, he was heavily injured. How is it? Outside the body of the desolate divine child, strands of matrix patterns flickered. In the other 3 directions, the heavenly demon puppet, the yin-yang saint sun, and the immortal swordsman were also surrounded by light. Lin Tian snorted, and blood-red flames leaped out. The nirvana of the sun was activated, and all his injuries were healed in the blink of an eye. The 4 of you together are only at this level. To be honest, it's not very good. At best, it can only be regarded as SOSO, he said. His voice was very calm, but it was mixed with clear sarcasm and indifference, causing the faces of the four to sink slightly. They were the young sovereigns of the ninth heaven, the next masters of their respective lineages, and one of the future giants of the ninth heaven. But now, a peer of the same generation evaluated them as SOSO, which made them very uncomfortable. They only felt that Lin Tian's attitude was too irksome. Self-righteous, the immortal swordsman said coldly. Lin Tian looked sideways and took a step forward. His speed suddenly increased, and he appeared in front of the immortal swordsman like lightning. His speed was so fast that it was like teleportation. The immortal swordsman was shocked and quickly retreated. Clang! The sound of the sword was ear-piercing. Lin Tian formed a sword with his right hand and slashed out the 3 moves of Lin Tian at the immortal swordsman like a thunderbolt. The distance was a bit close, and the speed of the sword itself was extremely fast. It was impossible for the immortal swordsman to dodge. Puff! Immediately, blood sputtered, and the immortal swordsman was directly penetrated. The immortal swordsman's face was pale, and his eyes were even colder. He endured the severe pain, and waved the immortal sword at Lin Tian. You! Slap! Lin Tian's speed was even faster, and he slapped the immortal swordsman's face with the back of his hand. The immortal swordsman vomited blood and fell to the ground with a bang, creating a huge crack in the ground. Such a scene caused all the cultivators in the area to involuntarily tremble. At this moment, the powerful immortal swordsman was actually slapped by Lin Tian, and he was knocked down from the sky. In the distance, the 2 quasi-emperors of the sacred Yin-Yang sect had cold expressions, and their eyes were filled with intense coldness. Boom! The tyrannical sword might surged, and the ground kept crumbling. The immortal swordsman soared into the sky, and his wounds healed in the blink of an eye. His eyes became even sharper and more threatening. At this moment, his entire person seemed to have turned into a peerless killing sword, giving off an incomparably sharp and dangerous feeling. He stared at Lin Tian and said, "Lin Tian!" Lin Tian actually slapped him. To him, this was even more unbearable than killing him. It made his killing intent erupt like a volcano. With a clang, a group of divine palaces appeared behind him. A divine sword rushed out from each of the divine palaces. Each of the divine swords was intertwined with surging sword power. It was as if they wanted to cut this entire world into pieces. It was very frightening. This is one of the profound divine arts of the Immortal Sword Island, the Divine Spirit Sword Imprint. An expert of the older generation couldn't help but exclaim. Clang! The sound of the swords intertwined like the roar of thunder. In the blink of an eye, 81 shrines circled behind the immortal swordsman, and a divine sword rushed out from each of them. Each sword was like an emperor, and the clanging sounds of the swords pierced through the hearts of many people, making them feel as if they were going to explode. The killing intent was terrifying. Lin Tian naturally felt the terror of this attack, and a sense of threat rose in his heart. However, his expression didn't change at all. You can't do it. You want to seize the Ling Tian sword scripture? This chapter is not finished, please turn the page. You're too far away. It's a complete mess. He looked at the immortal swordsman and said indifferently, then looked at the heavenly demon puppet, the Yin-Yang saint child, and the desolate ancient god child. You guys are the same. If you don't rely on your sect and want to rob me with your own strength, it's simply a joke. With that said, he glanced at the quasi-emperors in the distance. Of course, your sects aren't good either. The top forces of the ninth heaven are all bandits, making a fool of themselves. You are destined to achieve nothing in the future. As soon as his words came out, all the cultivators in this place sucked in a cold breath. Not only did he say that the immortal swordsman and the others were not good, but he also said that the immortal sword island, the Yin-Yang saint child, the heavenly demon divine sect, and the desolate ancient shrine were all bandits. However, on second thought, these people felt that Lin Tian's words didn't seem to be wrong. Several great forces wanted to rob Lin Tian's things. Such a method was indeed no different from bandits. In the distance, the Immortal Sword Island and the other 3 great forces, as well as the 7 quasi-emperors, were all filled with killing intent. And they stared at Lin Tian in the sky. If it weren't for the presence of their own divine son and saint child, they would definitely have attacked directly. Boom! 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 4 waves of killing divine energy intertwined, shaking the sky and oppressing all directions. You're courting death! The desolate ancient divine son's voice was cold. Endless formation runes intertwined, and he took a step forward, heading straight towards Lin Tiansha. Kill! The immortal swordsman carried the god spirit sword seal Grand Theurgy, and his eyes were sharp as he charged towards Lin Tian. At the same time, the demonic radiance was vast and mighty. Yin and Yang surged. The heavenly demon puppet and the yin-yang saint also charged toward Lin Tian. At this moment, the 4 great experts had all used their strongest killing techniques, which seemed to be able to suppress everything. Facing the 4, Lin Tianling snorted. With a buzzing sound, he directly propped up the reincarnation diagram. The divine and holy aura immediately spread in all directions, and the diameter of the diagram evolved to about 100 feet. At his will, it pressed towards the 4 at the same time. In an instant, the space in all directions collapsed. The divine power was terrifying. In the sky full of divine light, Lin Tian used the Sun's Nirvana technique and the Sun Heart Sutra to protect himself. With the reincarnation diagram above his head and the yin-yang saint child under his feet, he used the Chaos Emperor fist, swung the towering heaven sword scripture, and used the 4 symbols Tao diagram to fight the 4 alone. He stepped forward, and the reincarnation diagram shook, instantly crushing all the divine techniques of the 4 great experts. He landed a punch on the desolate ancient divine son's chest, directly smashing him into pieces. Clang! He swung the towering heaven-killing sword, and with a poof, half of the immortal swordsman's body was cut into pieces. Dazzling blood dyed the sky red. Then, he used the yin-yang saint child to break through the heavenly demon puppet and the yin-yang saint child. The divine elephant and the 4 symbols Tao diagram fell at the same time, sending the 2 flying, causing them to explode at the same time. It was a shocking scene. Such a scene could be said to be shocking to everyone. 1 against 4, 4 against the desolate ancient divine son at the same time, and he actually injured all 4 of them. Is he invincible in the same generation? Someone trembled. Far away, the expressions of the boundary emperors from the yin-yang sect changed drastically. When they stared at Lin Tian, the murderous intent in their eyes became even more intense. He's indeed as perverse as before. Ling Yun swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Previously, he was still worried that Lin Tian might not be able to win against the encirclement of 4 great experts by himself. However, he never imagined that Lin Tian's combat strength would be so exaggerated, far exceeding his expectations, and actually heavily injuring the 4 of them. Ah! There was an angry roar, and the divine radiance was vast and mighty. The heavenly demon puppet and the other 3 quickly repaired their physical bodies, and their expressions turned ugly. Lin Tian looked at the 4 of them, and the reincarnation diagram appeared again with an indifferent expression. How about it? I said that you guys can't do it. His voice was calm. This caused the heavenly demon puppet and the other 3's faces to turn pale, and the aura outside their bodies naturally became terrifying. At this moment, the 4 of them did not say anything superfluous. They activated even more powerful divine techniques and directly charged toward Lin Tiansha. 4 waves of murderous intent pressed toward Lin Tian at the same time. Lin Tianling snorted, and the reincarnation diagram vibrated, pressing forward with force. Hee hee! At this moment, a sinister laugh rang out, bringing with it a menacing blood-red radiance that cut across the sky and slashed toward Lin Tian. It also enveloped the immortal sword sun, the heavenly demon puppet, the yin-yang saint child, and the desolate ancient divine son, and the emperor's might intertwined. Chapter 11:13. The blood-red light appeared abruptly, and the emperor's might was extremely dense. It was so powerful that Lin Tian's expression changed immediately. He didn't have time to think. He blocked the reincarnation portrait in front of him, and stepped on the yin and yang puppet to retreat. With a whoosh, the blood-red light landed on the reincarnation portrait, causing it to shatter into pieces. Cough! He coughed up blood from the impact, but he still managed to dodge the blood-red light's direct attack and retreated several hundred feet away. At the same time, the heavenly demon puppet and the other 3 young supreme beings were also in trouble. Although they managed to dodge the blood-red light's direct attack like Lin Tian, they were also injured. They coughed up blood one after another, and were each pushed several hundred feet away. This scene caused everyone's expression to change. Someone was actually attacking Lin Tian and the other 4 supreme beings at the same time. Who is it? A boundary emperor from the Saint Yin Yang sect spoke. His emperor's might intertwined as he looked in the direction of the blood-red light with an extremely cold gaze. In the distance, Sun couldn't stop laughing. It sounded a little jarring. They all managed to dodge. Unpleasant, very unpleasant. A skinny man with a blood-red sword in his hand walked in the air like a demon. His body was surrounded by blood-red light as he walked toward them. Lin Tian tilted his head to look. His eyes immediately turned cold. He felt a very familiar aura from this skinny man. Great Destruction God Dynasty, he said coldly. The skinny man with the blood-red sword looked at Lin Tian and grinned like a beast. Hello, I am Lin Ken as in cold, Ken as in cruel. Come, let me think. He looked at Lin Tian with blood-red light swirling around him. His words gave people a very twisted feeling. Yes, I'm here to kill you. I'm here to kill you. As he spoke, he bent over and laughed loudly. His voice was jarring, and his cheeks were distorted. He then bent over and looked at the Saint Yin Yang sect and the others. If possible, I'd like to kill all of you as well. Just now. It's a pity. Unpleasant. 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 Very unpleasant. He bent over, and blood-red light intertwined around him. The blood-red sword in his hand swung violently, and streaks of blood-red sword light scattered into the distance, where a group of ordinary cultivators stood. In an instant, the group of ordinary cultivators were all killed. This? What did he do all of a sudden? In the vicinity, everyone else was horrified. The skinny man laughed loudly. His face was distorted as if he had a split personality. He swung his sword into the distance again. Ah! Miserable screams rang out in an instant. A large number of cultivators were killed, dyeing the ground red with blood. Go! Hurry up and leave! Run! The group of cultivators panicked. Each and every one of them was terrified as they frantically ran into the distance. The skinny man laughed loudly as he swung the blood sword in his hand. Sword rays mixed with faint emperor's might shot into the distance. Ah! Screams of agony and fear rang out continuously. One after another, the cultivators exploded, their bodies and souls destroyed. F***CK. This was truly a madman. Psychopath. His personality is twisted. Whooshing crocodile cursed. Lin Tian watched this scene and looked at the skinny man with an expressionless face. On the other side, the Yin Yang Saint's son and the others stared at the skinny man. Their eyes narrowed slightly as they watched silently. Die. Death. Die. The thin male laughed crazily, extremely ear-piercing. Blood-colored killing light continuously shot into the distance. Ah! In the distance, a group of cultivators fled frantically. All of them were inexplicably terrified. Blood kept splattering everywhere as people died tragically. These people had come to the Taichu Immortal Ridge to search for treasures and immortal opportunities because of the Yin Qi that had surged up earlier. They also happened to stop and watch the battle from afar because of the battle between Lin Tian and the others. They did not expect to encounter such an unexpected disaster at this time. The skinny man laughed maniacally and kept swinging his sword. He only stopped after dozens of breaths. At this moment, almost half of the cultivators in the distance had died. Blood dyed a large area of the ground red. The cultivators who were still alive had already fled extremely far away. All of them were trembling with fear in their eyes. The blood light outside the skinny man's body became denser. When he laughed, his cheeks trembled. It was so twisted that it was somewhat horrifying. Happy! Happy! The skinny man laughed maniacally. In the distance, the group of cultivators trembled even more violently. Many of them retreated again and again, almost tens of thousands of feet away from this place. Lunatic! Damn pervert! Whooshing crocodile cursed. So King disgusting. Ling Yun also cursed. Lin Tian remained expressionless as he stood quietly in the sky. On the other side, behind the heavenly devil puppet, the quasi-emperor Luo Shao looked at the skinny man. There were strands of demonic light intertwining in his eyes. Lin Ken, one of the humanoid weapons cultivated by the great extinguishing god dynasty 2,000 years ago. In order to improve his Tao of killing, he killed his mother and father. He stepped into the quasi-emperor realm with extreme cruelty and participated in the assassination of a Chaos Realm emperor. The quasi-emperors from the sacred Yin-Yang sect and the other two great forces snorted. Clearly, they knew about Lin Kan. This was because his character was too twisted. His mentality and behavior were too perverse. Over these years, he had openly killed many cultivators in public. Many great forces knew that the great extinguishing god dynasty had such an assassin. Moreover, they were very wary of him. This was because he was very strong. As a humanoid weapon cultivated by the great extinguishing god dynasty, he was an existence that killed for the sake of killing. He was much stronger than ordinary quasi-emperors. He was said to be invincible under the emperor realm. Lin Tian's gaze fell on the skinny man. His eyes darkened slightly. Strands of cold light intertwined in his eyes. He could not help but clench his fists. In order to become stronger, he killed his mother and father. In this world, there was no one more evil than this. No, this could not be called a human. He was worse than a beast. He could not even be compared to dog sh*t. The skinny man sensed Lin Tian's gaze. A twisted smile appeared on his face. His eyes seemed to be able to see through people's hearts. He grinned and asked Lin Tian, "Do you think it's not good to kill one's parents?" His voice was ear-piercing. He laughed maniacally. "What's not good about it? It's fine as long as I become stronger. When I become stronger, they will be very happy." This person laughed maniacally. His voice was very ear-piercing. Moreover, it spread far and wide. People who were very far away could hear it. Many cultivators trembled, unable to utter a single word. F*ck, this F*cur. Behind them, Ling Yun cursed. In the sky, Lin Tian looked at the skinny man. The coldness in his eyes intensified. The skinny man laughed maniacally. The blood-red sword in his hand trembled non-stop. He looked at Lin Tian and licked his lips. His eyes stared straight. "That's right, it's time to kill you." As he spoke, he laughed again like a madman. He held the sword in one hand and cracked the 5 fingers of his other hand. "Slowly, slowly. Let me slowly pull out your heart and organs. I'll kill you bit by bit and give you sufficient pleasure in death." As he finished speaking, he turned to look at the Yin-Yang saint and the others. "After killing him, I'll send all of you on your way." The Yin-Yang saint and the others' eyes darkened. The 7 boundary emperors' eyes all turned cold. Their killing intent intertwined. The skinny man laughed sinisterly. The blood-red light around his body intensified. His killing intent bloomed. He tilted his head and stared straight at Lin Tian. Clang! He laughed loudly. With a loud clang, the blood-red sword in his hand shattered a large part of the sky. He charged toward Lin Tian like a ferocious ghost. This action shocked the quasi-emperors from the sacred Yin-Yang sect, the Immortal Sword Island, and the rest of the 4 major powers. "Stop him! We want him alive!" a boundary emperor from the Yin-Yang sect said. In an instant, the boundary emperors from the 4 major forces all moved. They all charged toward Lin Tian. If they wanted to obtain the ancient killing formation in Lin Tian's body, they would first have to suppress Lin Tian and use the soul-searching technique to extract the essence of the ancient scripture. Even if the pure yang flame that the heavenly devil puppet wanted could be obtained after killing Lin Tian, they would first have to ensure that Lin Tian's corpse was relatively intact. If the skinny man turned him into a bloody mist, they would not be able to obtain it. In an instant, a total of 8 boundary emperors charged toward Lin Tian together. It's over! He's dead! Far away, many cultivators who had not really fled were still staring in this direction. When they saw this scene, their expressions changed. No matter what, Lin Tian could not block the 8 boundary emperors. It was a situation where he would definitely die. Lin Tian stood in the sky. He could clearly feel the pressure of the 8 boundary emperors, causing his bones to creak and his internal organs to become cold. He felt the absolute threat of death, especially that skinny man whose aura was the most terrifying. Even so, his expression did not change in the slightest. He did not even move a single step as he stood there calmly. Only his gaze shifted slightly as he looked at little Alpha Primordium in the distance. Ha 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 ha! The skinny man laughed maniacally. His speed was much faster than the 7 boundary emperors of the 4 major forces. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of Lin Tian. Oh no! The boundary emperors of the yin-yang sect all changed their expressions. If Lin Tian was killed by the skinny man, their goal would be in vain. They would miss the opportunity to obtain the celestial worthy ancient scripture. At the same time, the heavenly demon puppet, the yin-yang saint, and the others were also shocked. The skinny man's laughter was extremely ear-piercing. The blood sword in his hand released a terrifying killing light as it slashed toward Lin Tian. Die, 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 die! He laughed maniacally. With a clang, the terrifying blood sword shattered the sky. Lin Tian faced the blood sword with a cold expression. Poof! Blood splattered in all directions like a pillar. The skinny man's body suddenly flew out and was torn into pieces. The sacred weapon blood sword in his hand was shattered with a crack. What? Instantly, everyone's expressions changed. The terrifying skinny man was a humanoid weapon cultivated by the great extinguishing god dynasty. He was known to be invincible below the emperor level. When he slashed his sword toward Lin Tian, he was sent flying and torn into pieces. The blood sword that was slashing toward Lin Tian also shattered. This person was a peak boundary emperor. That blood sword was a sacred weapon of a sect. The 7 boundary emperors of the yin-yang sect turned pale again. They stopped in their tracks and looked at Lin Tian in shock and disbelief. Further behind, the heavenly demon puppet, the immortal sword sun, the primordial divine sun, and the yin-yang saint were also shocked. Yeah. Chapter 11:14. The snow-white little fellow was rather eye-catching. Coupled with its babyish voice, it instantly attracted everyone's gazes, especially the female cultivators who were extremely far away. At this time, when they saw the little fellow, many people's eyes lit up. Because of the fear brought by the skinny man, they couldn't help but weaken a lot in an instant. It's the little fellow that was lying on his head. Wasn't it in another position just now? How did it suddenly appear on his shoulder? I didn't see it move. The humanoid weapon of the great extinguishing divine dynasty was suddenly sent flying. Could it be that little fellow's doing? That Lin Tian doesn't have that kind of strength. That little fellow suddenly appeared there, it seems. Is it really it? But it's so small. It can injure a quasi-emperor? Shatter a divine weapon? Many people were shocked. At the same time, the yin-yang saint and the other quasi-emperors of the 4 major forces also looked at the little Taichu with shocked expressions. Just now, the skinny man, who was stronger than the 7 of them, was suddenly injured and his divine weapon shattered. They felt that Lin Tian himself could not have done that. However, at this time, the little Taichu suddenly appeared on Lin Tian's shoulder. They could not help but ponder. Their expressions were slightly cold, and for a moment, they did not do anything else. Only the wishing crocodile and Ling Yun looked relaxed and smiled sinisterly. They knew best how powerful the little Taichu was. Lin Tian's expression was indifferent. Of course, The little Taichu was the one who injured the skinny man and shattered his divine weapon. He had looked at little Alpha Origin when the other party was about to reach him. Even though it was only a glance, the little fellow, who had been in his body for several years, was naturally able to understand. In an instant, it had appeared beside him without a sound, and the skinny man was naturally met with a bloody misfortune. Boom! A turbulent aura surged. In the distance, the skinny man reformed his body, and the blood-red glow around his body became even more turbulent. You hurt me! You hurt me! You hurt me! You dare hurt me! You dare hurt me? Staring at Lin Tian, the skinny man's eyes were filled with rage. Then, with a rumbling sound, he pounced towards Lin Tian. He was like a malicious spirit from hell, his face incomparably ferocious. Ka-ka-ka sounds rang out. The space in all directions shook uncontrollably, crumbling inch by inch under his powerful aura. It was extremely horrifying. Kill! With a ferocious roar, the skinny man rushed to Lin Tian's side in the blink of an eye. His emperor's might surged as the 10,000 extinguishing killing technique rumbled. Lin Tian looked at him coldly and didn't move. On his shoulder, little Taichu's big eyes were watery, but it didn't move either. Pooh! Blood splashed out again. The shriveled man was sent flying, directly exploding into pieces. Such a scene caused everyone to be shocked once again. What's going on? Once again, the humanoid weapon of the all-extinguishing god dynasty, that Lin Tian didn't do anything. Is it the little guy on his shoulder? That's not right, that little guy didn't do anything. I definitely saw it clearly. They didn't move at all. In the distance, many cultivators were shocked and confused. Only the 7 quasi-emperors of the Yin-Yang sect were shocked at this moment. They trembled slightly. This was because the skinny man was sent flying for the first time, and because little Taichu suddenly appeared on Lin Tian's shoulder. The 7 of them felt that this little guy was extraordinary, so when the skinny man charged towards Lin Tian again, the 7 of them stared straight at him. Then, they also saw that Lin Tian and little Taichu didn't move. However, during this process, they all felt a vast and boundless aura. This aura was intertwined with the little Taichu on Lin Tian's shoulder. At this moment, the 7 of them stared at the little Taichu again. Their eyes were filled with horror and they couldn't help but take a step back. TSK, as expected of the little guy that Lin Tian incubated for several years. He's indeed different. Just the aura he released naturally can shatter the body and injure the soul of a quasi-emperor. He's so powerful that it's a mess. In the distance, Wishing Crocodile chuckled. Next to him, Ling Yun also laughed sinisterly. Ah! The skinny man roared again. In the distance, he reassembled his physical body and stared straight at Lin Tian. His expression became even more ferocious, and the blood-red glow around his body became even more intense. He looked like a peerless ghost that had walked out of hell. You deserve to die! Damn you, damn you, damn you, damn you, damn you, damn you! He roared madly. His eyes were bloodshot, and he looked completely deranged. Then, with a whoosh, he charged towards Lin Tian again like a mad beast. Die, 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 die! For a moment, the blood-red glow intertwined around his body and a bloody and evil aura surged in all directions. Even the sky was stained with a layer of blood. His voice was terrifying. However, the outcome was no different from the previous 2 times. With a puff, his quasi-emperor physical body exploded into pieces again. Ah! The man roared madly. He reassembled his physical body and charged towards Lin Tian again. Then, his body exploded again. Damn it! The man's expression was ruthless. He charged forward again and exploded again. That's a quasi-emperor! How could this be? The group of cultivators trembled. They watched as a quasi-emperor continuously attacked Lin Tian, and exploded while Lin Tian and the little Taichu on his shoulder didn't move at all. The scene was so terrifying that many people felt a chill run down their spines. Is it really because of that little guy? Someone trembled. After watching for so long, these cultivators weren't stupid. Many of them had already guessed that this had something to do with the little Tai Chu. The quasi-emperors of the four major forces, including the Yin-Yang Saint, were all horrified. "Ah!" the skinny man roared. His eyes were bloodshot, and his face was ferocious as he charged towards Lin Tian in a frenzy. However, the outcome didn't change. Every time he got close to Lin Tian, he would explode. Then, after his body exploded 11 times in a row, he stared at Lin Tian again. Finally, fear appeared in his eyes. His gaze fell on the little Taichu on Lin Tian's shoulder. What is that thing? What is it?" After all, he was a quasi-emperor super expert, and a humanoid weapon cultivated by the great extinguishing divine dynasty, which was said to be invincible under the Chaos Emperor. Although he was crazy and mentally twisted, after his body was shattered 11 times in a row, this skinny man became much more clear-headed like a normal person. He knew the reason why his body was shattered time and time again. Everything was because of the little Taichu on Lin Tian's shoulder. Moreover, his body was shattered time and time again because of the other's aura. What is it? What is it?" He stared at Lin Tian and the little Taichu on Lin Tian's shoulder. The fear in his bloodshot eyes intensified as he staggered backward. Lin Tian looked at this person. "Come again. Why did you stop?" The skinny man trembled and his body began to tremble. "You're not coming again?" Lin Tian's expression was cold. "Then die. You killed your mother and father. You're worse than pigs and dogs." On his shoulder, the little Taichu naturally understood what he meant. It stretched out a little paw and waved it across the void. Instantly, a 6-colored divine light silently descended and directly enveloped the skinny man. "Chi!" With a chi sound, the skinny man who was charging over suddenly paused. Then, he directly shattered like porcelain. This time, not a single drop of blood splashed in the air. The skinny man was completely turned into ashes, not even leaving behind a trace. For a moment, this place seemed to have become deathly silent. "It's it! It's really that little guy!" Very far away, someone stared at the little Taichu on Lin Tian's shoulder with trembling eyes. It only waved its paw, and that's a humanoid weapon cultivated by the great extinguishing divine dynasty. It kills for the sake of killing. It's truly invincible under the Emperor level." "It is in the Emperor level?" Many cultivators were shocked. At the same time, the 7 quasi-emperors from the 4 major forces, as well as the 4 young supremes including the primordial divine prince, were all shocked. Their eyes flickered, and they were all stunned by the power of the little Taichu. With just a simple wave of its paw, it actually killed a quasi-emperor who was invincible under the Emperor level. This was definitely the power of an Emperor level. "Young master, let's go!" Yiluo Shao, the quasi-emperor of the Heavenly Demon Divine Sect, said in a low voice. Demonic light flickered around his body as he wrapped the Heavenly Demon puppet and fled into the distance. At the same time, the quasi-emperors of the 3 major forces, including the Yin-Yang sect, returned to the side of their respective young supremes. Quasi-emperor level divine power surged and wrapped around their young supremes as they fled into the distance at extreme speed. At this time, they could clearly feel how terrifying the little Taichu beside Lin Tian was. If they stayed, they would definitely die. "Don't even think about leaving," Lin Tian's voice rang out. On his shoulder, the little Taichu cried out in a childish voice. The wings on its back flapped, and a circle of 6-colored divine light immediately spread out like ripples on water. In the blink of an eye, it enveloped the space within a radius of several thousand feet like a boundary barrier, sealing the void. All of a sudden, the cultivators from the Yin-Yang sect and the other 4 forces all stopped in their tracks. They were cut off from the outside world. "What are you trying to do?" A quasi-emperor of the Yin-Yang sect stared at Lin Tian now with an ugly expression. "You came here to steal my divine fire, ancient scriptures, and killing formation to kill me. What do you think I'm trying to do now?" Lin Tian now. The quasi-emperor of the Yin-Yang sect who spoke trembled. He naturally heard the killing intent in Lin Tian's words. Looking at the little Taichu on Lin Tian's shoulder, his expression became even uglier. Then, he said in a low voice, "Young man, I advise you not to act recklessly. Killing us here won't do you any good. Even if you have someone comparable to an emperor by your side, you're still far from being able to contend against our sect. Our sect doesn't only have one emperor. We also have a ninth heaven emperor overseeing our sect." Lin Tian looked at this person with an indifferent expression. "Is that so? I'm so scared." His voice was very calm, but there was an obvious indifference in it. This made the quasi-emperor of the Yin-Yang sect turn pale. "Don't be too erase." Lin Tian's voice rang out again, interrupting the quasi-emperor of the Yin-Yang sect. "Yeah." Chapter 11:15. The six-colored divine light suddenly appeared and descended from the sky without any warning. It intertwined with a faint divine aura and directly enveloped the Boundary Emperor who spoke. The Boundary Emperor's expression changed drastically. He had personally seen the skinny man from the great extinguishing divine dynasty being destroyed in a single strike. He couldn't help but shout, "Stop, Qi!" With a soft sound, the six-colored divine light enveloped this Boundary Emperor. Just like the skinny man, he was directly reduced to ashes. "Old Third!" The other Boundary Emperor from the Yin-Yang sect was shocked. The Boundary Emperors and young primes of the other major forces also trembled. Another Boundary Emperor had been killed. At the same time, the group of cultivators far away trembled. Most of them couldn't help but gasp. So terrifying! Everyone stared at the little Taichu on Lin Tian's shoulder in horror. A Boundary Emperor was actually so weak in the hands of the little Taichu. It could actually kill them so easily with just a wave of its claws. "Heh!" The five elements Crocodile and Ling Yun laughed sinisterly as they stared at the expressions of the quasi-emperors and young supremes of the four major forces. They felt very happy. Lin Tian stood in the void. His expression was very calm. The little Taichu floated on his shoulder, blinking its big eyes. "Thinking about how arrogant you guys were when you forced me to come here, and then looking at the changes in your expressions now, it's really a kind of enjoyment." His voice was very calm, but everyone present could hear the sarcasm in his words. Instantly, the Boundary Emperors of the four major forces gritted their teeth. They were shocked and angry. The Yin-Yang Saint and the other young primes naturally didn't look too good either. The heavenly demon puppet's eyes were very fierce. "What's the point of relying on others? If you have the guts, fight me with your own strength." Lin Tian tilted his head and looked. "Do you think you can defeat me? That I can't kill you? You think you can kill me with your own strength?" The heavenly devil puppet's eyes were filled with wildness. Lin Tianling humped. With a wave of his left hand, the celestial slang Bao, a high-grade sacred artifact, appeared. Then, he directly infused it with the laws of the Great Tao, pulling the bowstring to the shape of a full moon, condensing the most powerful Great Tao killing arrow, carrying with it strands of black lightning. His expression was indifferent as he released the bowstring in his right hand. In an instant, the great path killing arrow whizzed through the air. Vaguely, the soul shadow of a huge demonic dragon appeared and roared at the sky. This kind of power was extremely frightening and terrifying. In terms of momentum, it was much more intense than the six-colored divine lights that the little Taichu had swept out. It caused many people to involuntarily tremble. The heavenly demon puppet's body trembled slightly. Naturally, it could feel the terror of this arrow. It immediately summoned all its strength. Demonic light rushed into the nine heavens, transforming into a huge pitch-black demonic shield. Crack! With a crisp sound, the great path-killing arrow rushed over and destroyed the demonic shield. Then, it pierced straight into the heavenly demon puppet's chest. Pooh! Blood splattered. The heavenly demon puppet was torn into pieces on the spot. It was also at this time that Lin Tian pulled the divine bow again. He still used all his strength. The great path precepts surged into the divine bow. Together with his third sky of nirvana cultivation and rich divine power, he drew the rolling spiritual chi in the void. In the blink of an eye, Another 3-foot-long great path-killing arrow was condensed. It carried a sky full of black lightning as it rushed toward the heavenly demon puppet. This was his strongest killing technique now. The combination of the great path precepts and a peak divine weapon was peerless and terrifying. For a moment, with a crack, this part of the world was shot through, and a huge void tunnel appeared. What a terrifying arrow! Young master! The quasi-emperor of the heavenly demon sect, Eluoxiao's expression changed. He could clearly feel that this arrow was a great threat to the heavenly demon puppet. Immediately, he released a vast amount of demonic light toward the great path-killing arrow shot by Lin Tian. "Don't get in the way," Lin Tianling said. On his shoulder, the little Taichu called out in a childish voice. With a wave of its little paw, a 6-colored divine light floated toward Eluoxiao. The 6-colored divine light did not have any terrifying power. It only had a faint divine aura, but it was as vast as the starry sky. "No!" Eluoxiao screamed. With a poof, he turned into ashes. At this time, with a rumble, Lin Tian's great path-killing arrow approached the heavenly demon puppet's body that had not yet reformed. With a poof, it pierced through again, and blood splattered everywhere. "Ah!" The heavenly demon puppet roared. Demonic light surged. Lin Tian was expressionless. He just stood in the distance. Once again, he pulled the divine bow to the full moon and released it with all his strength. With a rumble, the third great path-killing arrow appeared. Black lightning and the demonic dragon soul shadow coexisted, shaking the 9 heavens. Poof! Before the heavenly demon puppet's body could reform, it was hit again. Its spirit was almost shattered, but it still did not die. The rolling demonic light was still vast and mighty, and the blood mist quickly surged toward the center. "Damn it!" he roared. Before his body could reform, a huge demonic shadow appeared. It towered between heaven and earth, and pressed down on Lin Tian. Immediately, the entire heaven and earth trembled. Its power was terrifying. "This little bastard took 3 of Brat Lin's most powerful great path-killing arrows and still didn't die. His strength is unquestionable. There are probably not many under half-step emperor level that can be his opponent," Wishing Crocodile said. Ling Yun nodded. "He is very strong." In the sky, Lin Tian stared indifferently at the heavenly demon puppet. Even though they were mortal enemies, he had to admit that the other party was indeed very strong. Few people could be his opponent. He stared at the other party. Without any hesitation, he pulled the divine bow again. The 4th great path-killing arrow formed. With a whoosh, it flew straight toward the heavenly demon puppet that had yet to reform its body. Immediately after, he pulled the bow again and shot out the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th great path-killing arrow. They were all terrifyingly strong. At the same time, the speed of these arrows was also very fast. They directly shattered the demonic shadow that the heavenly demon puppet summoned. In the blink of an eye, they appeared in front of the heavenly demon puppet's body. Pooh! 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 Waves of blood splashed out as the heavenly devil puppet let out a miserable shriek. Its flesh and blood had been completely destroyed, and only its spirit had survived. It would be difficult to reform its body in a short period of time, and this spirit that had survived was covered in cracks, as if it would shatter at the slightest touch. "Lin Tian!" The heavenly demon puppet's soul roared, full of anger. Lin Tian's expression was very calm. He pulled the bowstring again, and the 9th great path-killing arrow was formed in the blink of an eye. "Goodbye," he said indifferently and let go of the bowstring. Immediately, with a whoosh, the 9th great path-killing arrow was covered in dense black lightning. It carried the demonic dragon's soul shadow and intertwined with his nameless great path. In the blink of an eye, it rushed in front of the heavenly demon puppet's soul and drowned it with a boom. "Ah!" the heavenly demon puppet roared. In the next moment, its voice disappeared and its aura also dissipated. Its body and soul were destroyed. "The heavenly demon puppet is dead, dead!" The crowd of cultivators was shocked. Compared to the death of the quasi-emperor Eluoxiao, the death of the heavenly demon puppet was obviously more frightening. This was because the heavenly demon puppet was the young master of the heavenly demon sect and the next master of the heavenly demon sect. He was the second person in the history of the heavenly demon sect to be bestowed with the surname, Heavenly Demon. He was definitely an existence that could step into the emperor realm, and might even surpass the founder of the sect. To the heavenly demon sect, he was much more important than Luo Xiao. It was not an exaggeration to say that he was the treasure of the heavenly demon sect. But now, such a heavenly demon puppet was killed. This was a great loss to the heavenly demon sect. Good kill! Awesome! Whooshing Crocodile and Ling Yun laughed heartily. After all, the heavenly demon puppet was very arrogant when it appeared. It said that it wanted to kill Lin Tian and seize Lin Tian's pure yang flame. Now that it was killed by Lin Tian personally, it was naturally very satisfying. Buzz! At this moment, the void suddenly buzzed and rumbled. The young supremes of the three great forces, the Saint Yin Yang sect, the Shrine of Desolation, and the Immortal Sword Island, each took out a jade platform one after another. It was a top-grade teleportation formation that could cross the heavenly domain. Strands of light intertwined and wrapped around the quasi-emperors of each faction. On Lin Tian's shoulder, little rascals saw the young supremes of the three great forces take out the heavenly domain teleportation formation and called out in a childish voice. Suddenly, a formless and colorless aura intertwined, like a breeze blowing in all directions. Whoosh! 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 The heavenly domain teleportation formations of the Saint Yin Yang sect and the other two supremes shattered at the same time and turned into ashes. For a moment, the three supremes and the quasi-emperors trembled again. Far away, the other cultivators were even more frightened. They looked at the little Taichu with even more fear in their eyes and shrunk their necks. "That's so scary," someone said in a trembling voice. Just a casual call was enough to destroy three heavenly domain teleportation formations. This kind of power was really terrifying. Lin Tian looked at the people of the three great forces and stood still. His expression was still indifferent, and there were no fluctuations in his emotions. "Young man, everything is negotiable. Let us go, and our sect will definitely reward you generously. Also, we will definitely not make things difficult for you after this," a quasi-emperor from the Immortal Sword Island said to Lin Tian in a deep voice. "You have already killed a quasi-emperor from our sect. Can you take this as atonement for our Saint Yin Yang sect? From now on, our sect will definitely not offend you," a quasi-emperor from the Saint Yin Yang sect said. A quasi-emperor from the Shrine of Desolation said in a deep voice, "As long as you don't kill us, the Shrine of Desolation is willing to give up the eternal killing formation and never be your enemy again. We will not bother you anymore." At this moment, the quasi-emperors of the three great forces were very clear about the current situation. The little Taichu beside Lin Tian definitely had the strength of a martial emperor. It was too easy for him to kill them. At this time, they had no choice but to temporarily lower their heads in order to save their lives. Lin Tian looked at the experts of the three great forces and couldn't help but sneer. Chapter 11:16. Lin Tian's voice was calm and indifferent, with undisguised mockery, causing the faces of the quasi-emperors of the three major forces to turn ashen. At the same time, the expressions of the three young sovereigns, the Yin-Yang Holy Sun, the Immortal Sword Sun, and the Desolate Divine Sun, also became very ugly. They stared at Lin Tian with a hint of coldness in the depths of their eyes. A quasi-emperor powerhouse of the Immortal Sword Island spoke in a solemn voice. "Young man, don't go too far in everything. It's wise to stop when the time is right. It's not wise to act only for a moment of pleasure." Lin Tian tilted his head and sneered. "Lowering your head and begging for mercy didn't work, so you started to threaten me? Other than threatening others, you big powers are really useless in every other aspect. You're a complete mess." The face of the quasi-emperor of the Immortal Sword Island who spoke became even more ashen. He was a dignified quasi-emperor powerhouse who had lived for more than 10,000 years, but now, he was being mocked by a young cultivator of the latter era. "Junior! You are too arrogant. Enough, you are too noisy," Lin Tiantan said coldly, directly interrupting the quasi-emperor of the Immortal Sword Island. Immediately on his shoulder, the little Taichu waved its little paw again, and a six-colored divine light shrouded the quasi-emperor. "Ah!" The quasi-emperor of the Immortal Sword Island let out a scream of horror, and in the blink of an eye, he was turned into ashes by the six-colored divine light. Another quasi-emperor died! In the distance, a group of cultivators stared at the little Taichu on Lin Tian's shoulder in horror. How long has it been? 4 quasi-emperors have been killed in a row, and all of them were just a simple paw attack. This is so satisfying! Wishing Crocodile laughed wildly. Ling Yun was also excited. He couldn't help but rub his hands together. Uncle Ling has a strong intuition that we can walk sideways in the 9th heaven in the future. With this little guy here, even if a Chaos Emperor comes, we won't have to worry too much. In the sky, Lin Tian stood there calmly, glancing at the quasi-emperors and young primes of the desolate shrine. Then, his gaze landed on the 2 quasi-emperors of the desolate shrine and the desolate shrine. I've heard that the desolate shrine has gathered the strongest formation masters of countless eras to construct a boundless immortal heavenly formation. You want to cooperate with the so-called force of life to break through the barrier of the 10th layer of heaven in the near future. What? All of the cultivators in the area were shocked. Gathering countless powerful formation manipulators to construct the immortal heavenly formation. Are they trying to break through the 10th heaven? The desolate shrine is doing such a thing? Many cultivators were shocked. Legend has it that the 10th layer of heaven contains the secret of eternal life. As long as one breaks through the 10th layer, they will be able to understand the secret of eternal life and reach the realm of immortality. This is the lifelong pursuit of all cultivators. However, breaking through the barrier of the 10th heavenly layer was too difficult. In the known history books, there seemed to be no one who had broken through the 10th heavenly layer. Now that they heard that the desolate shrine was planning to break through the 10th heavenly layer with the power of countless array manipulators, it naturally caused the crowd of cultivators to turn pale with fright. After all, this matter was related to eternal life, so no one would not care. For a long time, it has been rumored that the desolate shrine is very mysterious, and they are always trying to win over various formation manipulators. It turns out that they are building the immortal heavenly formation to break through the 10th layer of heaven. What a big ambition! The force of life, what is it? Many cultivators were surprised. At this time, even the quasi-emperors of the Yinyang sect and the Immortal Sword Island were shocked. Obviously, they were not aware of this matter. The 2 quasi-emperors of the desolate shrine and the desolate divine sun were shocked, and wisps of cold light appeared in their eyes. One must know that building the immortal heavenly formation to break through the 10th layer of heaven was the top secret of the desolate shrine. One of the quasi-emperors gritted his teeth. How do you know about this? I want to know, so I know. Lin Tian now. This was something he learned from the divine master of the Black Country in the first heaven. The other party seemed to have some relationship with a great figure in the Shrine of Desolation, so he knew about this matter. In addition, the other party had great personal ambitions and wanted to control the behemoth of the Shrine of Desolation in the later era. Therefore, after discovering his powerful talent as an array manipulator, he wanted to rope him in. After he made a fake oath, he secretly revealed this matter to him. All of this was to pull him into his camp by using the fact that he could obtain the secret of immortality by breaking through the 10th heavenly layer. He looked at the 3 quasi-emperors of the desolate shrine and learned another thing. The desolate shrine had learned about his control of the eternal killing formation through the death of that person, but they didn't know that the other party had also told him about this matter at that time. Gradually, his eyes became cold again, because, at that time, he learned another thing from that person. The immortal heavenly formation constructed by the desolate shrine in the future uses the power of all living beings to activate the formation. In fact, the power of all living beings is the life and blood souls of countless living beings. They used the life and souls of countless living beings as the source power to activate the immortal heavenly formation. The person who went to the desolate shrine in the first heaven was there to collect the so-called power of all living beings. He had seen with his own eyes the blood souls of countless innocent people who had lost their lives and were struggling with hatred. "One day, I will go to your desolate shrine and destroy your immortal heavenly formation," he said in a cold voice to the little Taichu. "Kill them!" In essence, he didn't think that he was a good person, but at the very least, he still had a bottom line. The desolate shrine had killed countless living beings to activate the immortal heavenly formation. This kind of behavior was really unbearable to him. Even though the people who were killed had nothing to do with him, it still made him angry. The two quasi-emperors and the desolate divine child of the desolate shrine all paled. At this time, Lin Tian's words of "kill them" were like a death sentence issued by the king of hell. "Stop!" "Yeah!" On Lin Tian's shoulder, the little Taichu called out in a childish voice, waving its little paws casually. Suddenly, a large expanse of six-colored divine light descended from the sky, enveloping the two quasi-emperors and the desolate divine child of the desolate shrine in the blink of an eye. "Chi! Chi! Chi!" Three crisp sounds were heard, and the two quasi-emperors and the desolate divine child of the desolate shrine instantly turned into ashes. Such a scene made the crowd of cultivators extremely far away tremble violently, and many people couldn't help but tremble violently. Two quasi-emperors and the desolate divine child of the desolate shrine, the next master of the desolate shrine, just like that. Many people's hearts trembled. Not to mention the two quasi-emperors, the significance of the desolation god-child to the desolation shrine was astonishing. It was the same as the significance of the heavenly demon puppet to the heavenly demon sect. He was a peerless genius of the desolation shrine, and was very likely to surpass the founder of the desolation shrine in the future. Now, the desolate divine child had been killed here, and this was a great loss for the desolate shrine. It was equivalent to the future pillar of the desolate shrine being destroyed prematurely. This. The crowd of cultivators was all horrified. Lin Tian stood in the sky, his expression still indifferent, looking at the two quasi-emperors and two young supreme beings of the immortal Sword Island and the Yin-Yang sect. For a moment, the quasi-emperors and young supreme beings of the two great forces couldn't help but tremble, fear rising in their eyes. "Little brother, have mercy! We swear that we won't offend you in the future. If we go back on our words, may the heavens and earth destroy us," the last quasi-emperor of the Yin-Yang sect said anxiously. On the other side, the quasi-emperors of the immortal Sword Island who were still alive also begged for mercy, their attitude extremely humble. After the human weapon of the great extinguishing shrine, Lun Ken, was killed, and they each lost a quasi-emperor. The people of the heavenly demon sect and the desolate shrine were all killed, including the young masters and divine children of the two great forces. This made the quasi-emperors of the immortal Sword Island and the Yin-Yang sect who were still alive feel a chill down their spines, and even their hearts were cold. "Do you think it's possible to let you go?" Lin Tianandao said. His indifferent voice made the quasi-emperors of the two great forces tremble, and the fear in their eyes became even more intense. The Yin-Yang saint stared at Lin Tian, his eyes intertwined with intense yin and yang light. He said in a deep voice, "You and I will fight one-on-one. If I win, you let us go. If I lose, you can kill me." He took a step forward, and yin and yang divine light surged around his body. Lin Tian looked at the Yin-Yang saint and smiled indifferently. "Do you have the right to make such a request?" He looked at the other party and said. The Yin-Yang saint snorted coldly, and the yin and yang divine light around his body became even more intense. He stared at Lin Tian and said, "You don't dare? You're afraid of losing to me?" Lin Tian sneered. "The four of you so-called young supremes of the same generation ganged up on me and were sent flying by me. Now you have the nerve to say such words. Do you have any shame?" The Yin-Yang saint's face instantly turned pale, and he felt a strong sense of humiliation. "You. All right, you talk too much. You'd better die obediently," Lin Tian said. On his shoulder, the little Taichu acted at the right time. He waved his six-colored divine light and directly enveloped the yin-yang saint. At the same time, it also enveloped the last quasi-emperor of the yin-yang sect, Lin Tian. The yin-yang saint screamed unwillingly, and with a whoosh, he disintegrated into ashes. At the same time, the quasi-emperor beside him was also destroyed, turning into ashes amidst a scream of horror. Suddenly, of the people from the great forces, only the quasi-emperor of the immortal Sword Island and the Sword Son of this faction were left. Lin Tian tilted his head and looked at the two of them. For a moment, the quasi-emperor of this faction and the immortal Sword Son trembled. The quasi-emperor expert said anxiously, "Little brother, don't be rash. Everything is fine. Little guy, do it." Lin Tian said to the little Taichu, interrupting the quasi-emperor. "Yeah." Chapter 11-17. The entire Taichu Immortal Ridge became deathly silent. Even the air seemed to have stopped flowing. It was extremely stifling. Dead, all dead. Some cultivators trembled. The young sect master of the heavenly demon divine sect and a quasi-emperor of this lineage, the saint of the yin-yang sect and two quasi-emperors of this lineage, the sword son of the immortal Sword Island and two quasi-emperors of this lineage, the divine son of the desolate shrine and two quasi-emperors of this lineage, as well as the humanoid weapon cultivated by the myriad extinguishing divine dynasty 2,000 years ago, the truly invincible quasi-emperors below the emperor level. All of them had been killed in the Taichu Immortal Ridge. Lin Tian's expression was very calm as he looked at the little Taichu on his shoulder. "Little guy, you're so powerful!" He smiled. "Yeah." Little Taichu responded in a childish voice. Its big watery eyes curved into a crescent shape as it intimately rubbed against Lin Tian. Wishing Crocodile chuckled and leaned over with Ling Yun. "This battle is really too kings satisfying. The future masters of a few top forces have all been killed. This is much more valuable than killing a few half-step emperors and quasi-emperors." "I agree." Ling Yun laughed loudly. The man and Crocodile stared at the little Taichu with excitement. This little guy was really too powerful. Although the six-colored divine light didn't have a terrifying aura, it was ridiculously powerful. It was as if it could sweep away everything in the world. Little Taichu called out to the man and Crocodile. It shook the wings on its back and lay on Lin Tian's head again. Lin Tian smiled and scanned the surroundings. Then, he called out to Wishing Crocodile and Ling Yun to leave. They walked out of the Taichu Immortal Ridge. Because this place was not far from the edge of the Taichu Immortal Ridge, and the cultivation of the group was very strong, their speed was very fast just by walking casually. Therefore, they walked out in the blink of an eye and disappeared into the horizon not long after. At this moment, all the cultivators in the distance were still staring fixedly at the direction Lin Tian had left in. All of their faces were filled with shock, and there were even some who couldn't help but shiver repeatedly and were unable to recover from their shock. The humanoid weapon of the great extinguishing god dynasty, the quasi-emperor experts of the primordial shrine and the other top forces. Most importantly, the holy sons, divine sons, and young masters of the four forces, the future masters, were all killed. This, someone shuddered. No matter which era it was, no matter which level of heaven it was, a god son or saint son of a top force was an incomparably important existence. They were the core hope of the sect's future. Once such a person died, it would undoubtedly be an incomparably tragic blow to the sect's inheritance. It was equivalent to burying the sect's core support in the future era. Now, the Yin-Yang Holy Church, the Immortal Sword Island, the Desolate Divine Temple, and the Heavenly Demon Divine Sect have all been killed. This matter is too big. Since ancient times, there has never been a case where the holy princes and holy princes of four top forces were killed in the same day in the ninth heaven. This is simply unprecedented. It can be said to be a super earthquake. Because of this matter, many cultivators could imagine the reaction of the top forces after learning of this matter. They would definitely go crazy. Of course, these people were also shocked by the power of the little Taishu, recalling the wisps of six-colored divine light. What the hell is that? It's too strong. Is it some kind of ancient beast? But I don't seem to have seen any records of such a beast. But it's too terrifying. It's definitely in the Emperor level. Many people trembled. In any case, this is going to turn the heavens upside down. Someone's heart palpitated. After that, everything that happened in this place spread like a lightning bird with wings. In the blink of an eye, it spread throughout the ninth heaven and the four main regions. Everyone knew about it. Suddenly, the world was shocked. The humanoid weapon of the great extinguishing god dynasty and the quasi-emperors of the top forces were killed, and the young master of the demon divine sect, the yin-yang holy sun, the primordial divine sun, and the immortal sword sun were all killed? How is this possible? The divine sons and holy sons of the four top forces, including the yin-yang holy sect and the primordial divine palace, were all killed on the same day. This news was too shocking. When many cultivators first heard this, they thought there was something wrong with their ears. However, when they saw the divine consciousness imprints that someone produced, they were instantly dumbfounded. It's true? It's true. The yin-yang holy sun and the other three were really killed? It's related to that Lin Tian? It's that guy again? That Lin Tian has an emperor-level beast with him? That little beast, what is it? How can it be so strong? There's no record of it in the ancient books. Many cultivators were shocked. Looking at the divine consciousness imprints that someone produced, many cultivators were shocked. Many cultivators were shocked that the yin-yang holy sun and the other three young supremes were killed because of Lin Tian. They were also shocked by the mysterious strength of the little beast beside Lin Tian. Then, many cultivators gradually became confused. Did the yin-yang holy sect, the heavenly demon divine sect, the immortal sword island, and the primordial divine palace also have a grudge against Lin Tian like the great extinguishing divine dynasty? Why were the quasi-emperors and young supremes of these four great forces killed so ruthlessly? Then, something slowly surfaced, and news spread rapidly in the ninth heaven. The yin-yang holy sect wants to seize the Sun Heart Sutra, the immortal sword island wants to seize the High Heaven Sword Sutra, the primordial divine palace wants to seize the eternal killing formation, and the young master of the heavenly demon divine sect wants to seize the pure yang flame? That Lin Tian. Forget about the pure yang flame. The Sun Heart Sutra was created by the Solar Celestial Venerable, the High Heaven Sword Sutra was created by the Sword Venerable, and the eternal killing formation was created by the Formation Emperor Celestial Venerable. That Lin Tian, he alone, controlled so many celestial venerable ancient scriptures? Many cultivators were shocked. The 9 great heavenly venerables were the 9 most powerful existences recorded in the history books of the 10 directions celestial domain. Each of them possessed heaven-defying methods. The ancient scriptures created by these 9 people were all extremely valuable. Just a little of them could be used for a lifetime. Now, Lin Tian alone actually controlled the ancient scriptures of 3 great heavenly venerables. This was simply too shocking. Where did he collect these inheritances? Some of the older half-step emperors trembled in fear. The entire ninth heaven was completely shaken. Every corner of the cultivation world was discussing Lin Tian's matter, the celestial venerable ancient scriptures, and the mysterious emperor-grade little beast. Then, gradually, many cultivators' thoughts returned to the initial shock. The young supremes of the 4 great forces were killed. The great extinguishing divine dynasty, the yin-yang holy sect, the desolate divine palace, the immortal sword island, and the heavenly demon divine sect won't let this matter go. Someone murmured. Western region, in the vast immortal mountains, in the desolate divine palace. Damn it! Damn it! An angry roar came from the window of the central divine palace. Inside the palace, the current palace lord's eyes were bloodshot. His killing intent shattered the sky, and a faint emperor's pressure interweaved in the sky. At the same time, there were several other great figures in this divine palace. All of them were shocked and angry to the extreme. They knew that Lin Tian had arrived in the ninth heaven, and they knew that Lin Tian had the eternal killing array. Their faction wanted to seize it. The most talented young supremes of this generation and two quasi-emperors went out together to seize it, but they didn't expect that the two quasi-emperors would die, and the most talented young supremes would also die. This loss was simply too great. That bastard actually has an emperor-grade beast around him. In the central hall, a great figure gritted his teeth and said, "Report this matter to the old ancestors. We must kill him. We must seize the eternal killing array. We must." The eyes of the current palace lord of this faction were bloodshot. Almost at the same time, the great extinguishing divine dynasty, the immortal sword island, the Saint Yin-Yang sect, and the heavenly demon divine sect were enraged. Their killing intent intertwined and surged like stormy waves, shaking the nine heavens. Time flew by, and 3 days passed. At this time, Lin Tianyi and the others were walking on a green mountain. They seemed somewhat casual, and their pace was very gentle. The great extinguishing divine dynasty should be crying. As for the Yin-Yang sect, the immortal sword island, the desolate divine palace, and the heavenly demon divine sect, they are probably going crazy. Whooshing Crocodile laughed. In the past 3 days, the ninth heaven was once again boiling with excitement. Every corner was talking about how a quasi-emperor of the great extinguishing divine dynasty was killed, and the young supremes of the Yin-Yang sect and the other 3 great forces were slaughtered. "It's all thanks to the little Tai Chu." Lin Tian smiled. Ling Yun had the same feeling. "That's not bad. It was all thanks to the little Tai Chu's strength that they were able to kill several quasi-emperors and the young supremes of the 4 great forces. Otherwise, the final outcome may be completely different." "Yeah." When the little Tai Chu heard Lin Tian and Ling Yun mention it, it called out in a childish voice, and its big eyes were very beautiful. Lin Tian chuckled, thinking that the little guy was really cute. Come to think of it, the few top forces like the myriad extinguishing god dynasty and the Yin-Yang sect will definitely not let this matter rest. After knowing that little Tai Chu is with us, the next time someone attacks us, it will probably be an emperor-level figure. Whooshing Crocodile glanced at the little Tai Chu on top of Lin Tian's head and said, "Although this little guy is indeed very powerful and should have the strength of an emperor-level character, it's hard to say exactly how powerful it is. If several great forces send emperor-level masters to attack us together, it will still be dangerous for us. We have to think about this matter carefully." Lin Tian nodded when he heard this. He felt that Whooshing Crocodile's words were very reasonable. "Indeed, we have to think about this matter carefully." Boom! At this moment, not far away, a tyrannical fluctuation of divine power swept out, and various different laws intertwined. Lin Tian frowned. He turned his head and saw a divine light spreading more than 1,000 meters away. 12 people were chasing after a young girl in a green dress and an old middle-aged man. All of them had cold expressions on their faces. That is... Chapter 11-18. Looking at the girl in the silk dress and the old man in the distance, Lin Tian naturally wouldn't forget that they were Yenya and Master Clairvoyant, whom he had met in the 3rd heaven. Back then, because of him, they had been captured and threatened by the 7 Luminaries' empire. Now, it had been nearly 10 years since then. He didn't expect to see them here. Whooshing Crocodile met Lin Tian's gaze. "Kid, an acquaintance?" "Yes." Lin Tian nodded and stepped into the distance. At this time, Yenya and Master Clairvoyant were being chased by more than 10 people. The situation was not optimistic, especially Master Clairvoyant. He felt that the other party's life fluctuation seemed to be about to stop, and he was a little anxious. He admired the old man a lot. Back then, the 7 Luminaries' empire had captured Yenya and threatened her with her life to deduce his whereabouts. However, the old man did not give in. He was an extremely righteous and upright person. He was unwilling to see the old man suffer any harm. Boom! In front of them, divine power surged, and all kinds of killing lights intertwined. There were sharp blade lights flying in all directions, and the momentum was terrifying. Master Clairvoyant, why struggle? Tell us the location of the Tianji dojo, and we won't make things difficult for you and your disciple. More than 10 people chased after Master Clairvoyant and Yen Yer. Their eyes were cold, and their voices were cold. The auras of more than 10 people were very fierce, and each of them was intertwined with nirvana-level fluctuations. Their divine power was like a mountain. Master Clairvoyant was as pale as ever, without a trace of blood. Tell him to give up. Master Clairvoyant's voice was weak, but it carried a will that was as strong as divine iron. Yen Yer's eyes were filled with worry. The great path surrounded her body, and all kinds of path light danced around her. It was like a Ruoxian spiritual warrior guarding her body. She flew with Master Clairvoyant, blocking the killing lights of more than 10 people. Yeah, let's go. Don't worry about me. If this continues, we will all die. You can leave safely by yourself, Master Clairvoyant said weakly. Yen Yer shook her head. How could she abandon her master and escape alone? The path light around her body became denser, and the great path in all directions roared. More than 10 people chased after her. As expected of an immortal spirit body. Only half-step nirvana level. One of them said in a deep voice. Among them, the weakest one was in the 2nd layer of nirvana realm, and there were even a few in the 5th layer of nirvana realm. With such a force, they couldn't suppress Yen Yer and Master Clairvoyant even after a long time. Tao lights danced around Yen Yer, weakening their godly power and disrupting their rhythm. However, he is only a half-step to nirvana stage cultivator after all. Divine Diviner, tell us the location of the Tianji dojo. Divine Diviner is your senior brother, and he has the same teacher as you. If he obtains the divine item from the Tianji dojo, he will definitely be able to bring glory to the Tianji clan. Tell us, and we will turn around and leave. We will not harm your lives. The expressions of the dozen or so people were ice cold. With his temperament, would he agree to let us go? Would he allow someone with the celestial spirit king physique to live and surpass him? After finding out everything, kill them all. That's the order he gave you. Master Clairvoyant's voice was weak. It was rare for him to say so much. Let him give up. Even if the Tianji clan is destroyed, we will not let the Tianji divine mirror fall into his hands. Hearing this, the dozen or so people's faces darkened. Coldness intertwined in their eyes. Attack with all your might. Form the 1,000 saber formation. Suppress her and bring her back, one of them said coldly. Boom! 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 More than 10 streams of tyrannical divine power gushed out. At this moment, the 10 people were each in a special position. In the blink of an eye, their auras condensed together. The terrifying power directly sealed off the surrounding area, blocking Yen Yer's path. In an instant, the Tao lights outside Yen Yer's body trembled and shattered one after another. They couldn't stop the condensed godly power of the dozen or so people. After all, although she had the immortal spirit king body, her cultivation level was too low compared to the dozen or so people. Now that the dozen or so people had condensed their power together with a special formation, she naturally couldn't resist it. She couldn't even escape. The dozen or so people's expressions were cold. Together, the godly light spread out and sealed off the surroundings. One of them looked at Master Clairvoyant and Yen Yer and said, You too, if you don't want to suffer for nothing, you'd better not resist. Come back with us. Clang! The ear-piercing sound of a sword resounded in all directions. A golden godly sword pierced through the air. It was extremely sharp. With a swoosh, it tore open the godly light circle that sealed Master Clairvoyant and Yen Yer. Then, without slowing down, it pierced into the chest of the man who spoke. Instantly, blood splashed everywhere. It was a ghastly sight. Everyone turned pale. Who is it? Among the dozen or so people, someone shouted angrily. Clang! 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 The sound of the sword was like a hurricane sweeping over. It arrived in the blink of an eye. Puff! 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 The dozen or so people who sealed Master Clairvoyant and Yen Yer all suffered. Even the fifth sky of Nirvana realm cultivators were no exception. They were all pierced by the sword radiance. Blood flowed out. In the distance, Lin Tian arrived. Stepping on the void, he appeared beside Master Clairvoyant and Yenya in a flash. "Senior, Monsieur, long time no see." He greeted the master and disciple with a smile. "Lin Tian!" Yenya was shocked. Although there was a lot of dust on her body, her beautiful face was still difficult to conceal. On the contrary, there was a kind of contradictory beauty. Even Master Clairvoyant was surprised. "Little brother, why are you here?" In fact, Master Clairvoyant and Yenya had been in the ninth heaven for some time. During these days, they had heard all kinds of things about Lin Tian. They knew that Lin Tian was also in the ninth heaven, but they were still a little surprised to meet him here. "I just happened to pass by." Lin Tian smiled and said. Wishing Crocodile and Ling Yun followed and looked at Master Clairvoyant and Yenya. Immediately, Ling Yun's eyes lit up. His gaze fell on Yenya's body, and he rushed over. "Peerless beauty!" Lin Tian glanced at him and directly slapped him away. "Kid, you!" Ling Yun's angry voice came from not far away. Boom! At this time, tyrannical divine energy intertwined, causing the void to rumble. The dozen or so people who were pierced by Lin Tian's sword radiance repaired their bodies. They were all shocked and angry. They all looked at Lin Tian with murderous intent. However, in the next moment, when they saw Lin Tian's face, their faces changed. It's you!" The dozen or so people were shocked. In the past few days, Lin Tian had caused a great commotion in the ninth heaven. First, he killed 9 half-step emperors and hundreds of powerful assassins of the great extinguishing divine dynasty. Not long ago, he killed several quasi-emperors in succession. At the same time, he also slaughtered the divine princes and holy princes of the Yin-Yang sect, Immortal Sword Island, Desolate Shrine, and Heavenly Demon Divine Sect. It was rumored that he had an emperor-level beast by his side. At this time, the dozen or so people saw Lin Tian, and they all felt a little scared. Lin Tian tilted his head and glanced at the dozen or so people. His expression was very calm, but it made the dozen or so people tremble involuntarily. One of the fifth heavenly layer powerhouses opened his mouth and said, "We are the people of the legendary Saber Pavilion. We were ordered to bring Master Clairvoyant and his disciple back. May I ask what is your relationship with them?" Lin Tian looked at this person and said, "Legacy of the Saber Pavilion. Are you trying to intimidate me with these words?" The legendary Saber Pavilion, like the Yin-Yang sect and the great extinguishing divine dynasty, was one of the top forces in the ninth heaven. "No, there's no such thing. Your Excellency has misunderstood," the fifth heavenly layer powerhouse said. He took a deep look at Lin Tian and Yenya, who was behind Lin Tian. He took a deep breath and said to the other dozen or so people, "Let's go." At this time, it wasn't difficult for this person to see that Lin Tian and Master Clairvoyant must have a good relationship. In that case, it was obviously impossible for them to capture Master Clairvoyant and his disciple today. After all, Lin Tian's strength was very terrifying. He was even more tyrannical than the heavenly demon puppet, the young master of the heavenly demon divine sect. Moreover, there was a mysterious emperor-level beast by his side. If they tried to snatch Yenya in front of Lin Tian, it was simply courting death. Clang! A sword she swept out, shattering the void and stopping the dozen or so people. "Who allowed you to leave?" Lin Tian said coldly. The dozen or so people trembled. The fifth heavenly layer powerhouse looked at Lin Tian and said in a deep voice, "Your Excellency, we don't seem to have provoked you, right?" "Provoking my friend is provoking me," Lin Tian said in a domineering tone. "Back then, because of him, Yenya was captured by the Seven Luminaries Empire and used to threaten Master Clairvoyant. Even then, Master Clairvoyant didn't yield and divined his whereabouts for the Seven Luminaries Empire. He respected and admired Master Clairvoyant very much. He didn't spend much time with Yenya, but he had long regarded her as a friend. Now that the master and disciple were being hunted down like this, he naturally wouldn't be happy. The dozen or so people's faces turned ugly when they heard this. Your Excellency, our legendary saber pavilion is not easy to bully. You're too overbearing. What do you want? One of them said in a deep voice. Lin Tian tilted his head and looked at Yen Yer, who was covered in dirt. He then looked at the godly diviner, whose face was as pale as a sheet of paper. Lin Tian turned his head and looked at the dozen people. Nothing much, I just wanted to kill you. The dozen or so people trembled. You! Boom! A violent aura spread out from Lin Tian's body. The golden divine light was vast and mighty, and the towering heaven sword light shot into the sky. It was a terrifying sight. He took a step forward, and the dense towering heaven sword light appeared and enveloped the dozen or so people at the same time. He slashed down mercilessly. He knew Master Clairvoyant very well. He was a very upright person, while Yen Yer was fresh, refined, and very quiet. Since the dozen or so people from the legendary Saber Pavilion were chasing after Master Clairvoyant and Yen Yer, he didn't need to think and directly put them on the list of evil people. At this moment, he attacked mercilessly. The golden towering heaven sword light was powerful and unparalleled. In an instant, a large part of the void was shattered, and the sword wind swept out in all directions. Poof! 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 Chapter 11:19. Blood mist floated in the air as the 3 second Heaven Nirvana stage cultivators were killed. The other cultivators from the legendary Saber Pavilion trembled violently. No matter what, he was still a second heavenly layer Nirvana expert, and he was actually killed by Lin Tian so easily. You've gone too far! The cultivators were shocked and furious. When you're chasing others and thinking of killing them, you'll never think of going too far. Lin Tian now. The faces of the cultivators from the legendary Saber Pavilion turned ashen. They could not find any words to refute him. At the same time, they were terrified. Lin Tian snorted and took a step forward. Towering sword lights danced in the sky and clanged loudly. In an instant, the sharp sword she rushed to the 9 heavens and scattered the clouds in the sky. It completely enveloped the remaining 12 cultivators from the legendary Saber Pavilion and slashed them indiscriminately. Poof! 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 In the blink of an eye, another 3 cultivators were slashed into pieces. Only their divine souls were left as they fled into the distance. However, as soon as the 3 divine souls rushed out, they met the 3 golden swords and were all shattered. Another 3 Nirvana stage cultivators were killed. Lin Tian! You've already offended 5 of the top forces in the 10 heavens territory. If you offend the legendary Saber Pavilion, it won't do you any good. A 5th heaven Nirvana stage cultivator gritted his teeth. You said it yourself? I've already offended 5 of the top forces in the 10 heavens territory. Now I'm afraid of the legendary Saber Pavilion. Lin Tian's expression was indifferent. He never took the initiative to provoke others. However, if someone provoked him or his friends, he would definitely retaliate. Even if the other party was a god, he would not care at all. He stepped forward and appeared in front of the 5th heaven Nirvana stage cultivator in the blink of an eye. He directly punched him. With a dong sound, the sky shook, and the space in all directions collapsed. You! Poof! The 5th sky of Nirvana realm warrior who spoke was directly smashed into pieces by the punch. Only his soul managed to escape, but it was covered in cracks. Lin Tian slapped out with the back of his hand. With a faint glow of the Tao, he shattered the soul into pieces with a swish. Amazing! Behind him, Yen Yer's eyes lit up. Although he had heard that Lin Tian was a powerhouse and had even seen someone use spiritual consciousness engraving, he still couldn't help but be surprised when he saw it with his own eyes. After all, there was a huge difference between seeing it through someone else's divine sense imprint and seeing it with one's own eyes. Of the dozen or so people from the legendary Saber Pavilion, only 8 remained. At this moment, their hearts were palpitating, and cold sweat trickled down their foreheads. They were all shocked by Lin Tian's terrifying strength. A person at the 5th level of the Nirvana realm was actually killed so easily. Split up! One of them gritted his teeth. The other 7 nodded. Lin Tian was too powerful. If everyone fled in the same direction, they would definitely be caught in one fell swoop. If they split up, there might still be someone who could survive. Whoosh! 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 The 8 of them fled in 8 different directions at top speed. Lin Tian snorted and raised his left hand. The peak high-grade sacred artifact, the immortal slaying bow, appeared in his hand, and he pulled the bowstring. Buzz! Spiritual power rolled in from all directions, and he infused it with his own great path precepts. In an instant, 8 arrows of divine light appeared on the bowstring. Each arrow was 3 feet long, and each arrow was filled with an extremely powerful killing aura. He stared at the 8 people who fled and released the bowstring in his hand. In an instant, 8 murderous arrows shot out. 8 spatial tunnels were pierced through the void. Then, in the next moment, 8 arrows were behind the 8 people in the blink of an eye. Poof! 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 8 mists of blood splattered. The 8 people were shot to pieces at the same time. Among them, 5 of them were destroyed in body and soul. The other 3 were lucky enough to not be destroyed because of their powerful cultivation. With a look of fear, they fled into the distance again. Humph! Lin Tian raised his hand and pulled the bowstring again. Another 3 arrows of the great Tao appeared and shot towards the 3 souls. The 3 arrows arrived in the blink of an eye, shattering the souls of the 3 with a sizzling sound, causing them to vanish into thin air in an instant. This place quieted down in an instant. Lin Tian put away the immortal slaying bow, turned around, and walked back to the marvelous mathematician and his disciple. So powerful! Yenyer blinked. More than a dozen Nirvana realm cultivators had been killed by Lin Tian in such a short time. Lin Tian chuckled. Well, it's barely okay. Excessive modesty is a sign of pride. Yenyer giggled. After so many years, there was no sense of estrangement between her and Lin Tian. Although there was a lot of dust on her body, her aura was still very ethereal. She couldn't help but show a different kind of charm as she laughed. She said to Lin Tian, Thank you. We are friends. This is what I should do. Lin Tian smiled. Ling Yun had already run back. At this time, he rolled his eyes and said, Boy, I think your smile is very evil. Tell me honestly, do you want to hit on the girl? Hearing this, Lin Tian immediately wanted to kick him. Little brother, thank you very much. At this time, the marvelous mathematician came forward and bowed slightly to Lin Tian. Lin Tian hurriedly stopped him from bowing and straightened the marvelous mathematician's body. Senior, you can't do this! The marvelous mathematician was one of the few people he respected. He was also an elder. How could he accept such a big bow from him? The marvelous mathematician chuckled and looked at Lin Tian Dao. You are still as dazzling as before. Seeing you again, really, cough! As he spoke, he suddenly trembled and directly coughed out a mouthful of blood. His already very pale face became even paler. Yenyer was shocked. Master! Lin Tian was also moved. At this time, the marvelous mathematician's life force was even weaker. He was like a candle in the wind, about to be extinguished at any time. Well? It seems like he was injured by the legendary meridian-shattering soul slash of the Saber Pavilion. The injury is very serious, Wishing Crocodile said. Lin Tian frowned. Meridian-shattering soul slash? One of the core secret techniques of the Saber Pavilion. It can attack a cultivator's meridians and soul through the physical body. It is difficult to heal with ordinary methods. Moreover, this injury will worsen with time. It is a very powerful attack divine technique, Wishing Crocodile said in a low voice. It's that slash. Yenyer looked worried. Previously, Master blocked the slash for me. At that time, I didn't see any special injuries. I thought it was nothing serious. I didn't expect. As she spoke, faint light surged out of her body. Then, the great Tao in the area began to seethe. Dense amounts of Tao light converged on Master God Diviner from all directions. They were gentle and soft, but they were also as vast and mighty as a river in the starry sky. They enveloped Master God Diviner and sank into his body. This Tao light was very rich and pure. It shocked Wishing Crocodile and Ling Yun. Both of them were moved. A half-step to Nirvana realm can actually summon such rich and pure power of the great Tao. This, even an ordinary ninth heaven of Nirvana realm expert would find it difficult to do. Wishing Crocodile was shocked. However, he immediately thought of something. His demon eyes were filled with shock. He stared at Yen Yer in disbelief. Could it be the immortal spiritual body? What? That, the imperial spiritual body that is said to be the favorite of the great Tao? When Ling Yun heard this, he was shocked. Only Lin Tian was calm. A few years ago, he had heard from an old drunkard that Yen Yer had the immortal spiritual body. Yen Yer supported the marvelous mathematician and guided the endless Tao light into his body. Gradually, the marvelous mathematician's complexion began to recover. Well, the injuries caused by the spirit-crushing pulse slash are difficult to heal with ordinary methods. However, this pure power of the great Tao should not be a problem. Even if it is an extremely serious injury, this level of power of the great Tao should be able to heal it easily, Wishing Crocodile said. He looked straight at Yenya, and his demon eyes were filled with shock. Could it really be the immortal spiritual body? Buzz. In this space, the light of the great path circled all around. Strands of light entered Master God Diviner's body, causing his life force to gradually become stronger. His essence, chi, and spirit also began to recover at a rapid rate, becoming stronger and stronger. However, in the next moment, with a sizzling sound, the Tao light surrounding the area suddenly dissipated. The light outside Yenyer's body also disappeared. Her aura became extremely weak. I've used up all my divine power. She supported the marvelous mathematician with a worried look on her face. Then, she subconsciously looked at Lin Tian. She had the immortal spiritual body and was known as the favorite of the great Tao. Her perception and control of the great Tao were unparalleled. However, she could only do that if she had the support of divine power. Without divine power, even if she was the favorite of the great Tao, she could not do anything. Meeting her gaze, Lin Tianwei was stunned. Then he smiled. I'll do it, he said and took a step forward. Kid, the spirit-crushing pulse slash is not easy to treat with ordinary methods. Are you confident that you can guide the pure and rich power of the great Tao? Wishing Crocodile asked. Well, I'm not sure. However, I won't guide the power of the great Tao. I'll use other methods. Lin Tian now. He had mastered the art of Nirvana of the Sun, a sacred healing technique created by the Solar Lord. He believed that with this technique, he should be able to heal the injuries caused by the spirit-crushing pulse slash. He came to the marvelous mathematician's side and directly channeled the art of Nirvana of the Sun. For a moment, blood-red flames jumped and directly enveloped the marvelous mathematician, continuously entering his body. That's a sacred healing technique. Wishing Crocodile's expression changed. Then, it bared its teeth and said, I forgot that you still have this precious technique. With this technique, there should be no problem. It naturally knew that Lin Tian had mastered the art of Nirvana of the Sun. It just did not remember at that moment. The blood-red flames buzzed and entered the marvelous mathematician's body. Soon, the marvelous mathematician's essence, chi, and spirit began to rapidly recover. His pale face gradually became rosy. Just like that, after a few dozen breaths, the marvelous mathematician's injuries were all healed. His life fluctuations returned to normal. It's done! Chapter 11:20. The Solar Nirvana technique was created by the Solar Celestial Lord, and it had unparalleled healing effects. It was not difficult to heal the wounds on Master Clairvoyant's meridians and soul. It's really healed! Yenyar was elated. Master Clairvoyant's spirit had recovered, and his face was rosy again. His life force had also stabilized. Thank you, little brother. I owe you another big favor. Master Clairvoyant stood up and thanked Ling Yun. It's nothing. Senior, don't be so polite, Lin Tian now said. Yeah, don't be so polite. He's still thinking about your disciple. Look at the way he looked at your disciple just now. Ling Yun pursed his lips. Lin Tian was speechless. He really wanted to kick Ling Yun away. Since when did he look at his disciple in such a way? Yan Yer blinked. Master Clairvoyant smiled, not at all bothered by Ling Yun's joke. May I ask who these people are? Master Clairvoyant asked Lin Tian now as he looked at Wishing Crocodile, Ling Yun, and the little Taichu on top of Lin Tian's head. They're all good friends. Lin Tian smiled and introduced Master Clairvoyant and Yan Ye to Wishing Crocodile and the rest. Master Clairvoyant? Wishing Crocodile looked at Master Clairvoyant in surprise. Master Clairvoyant? Master Clairvoyant's descendant? Yes. Master Clairvoyant nodded. There was nothing to hide. That's true. Master Clairvoyant is said to be able to predict everything. In a way, it's very scary. Wishing Crocodile clicked his tongue. Lin Tian's expression was very calm. He was not surprised at all because he had already learned about Master Clairvoyant's background from an old drunkard. He looked at Master Clairvoyant and asked, Oh right, Senior, why are those people from the legendary Pavilion of Swords chasing after you? Wishing Crocodile and Ling Yun looked at Master Clairvoyant curiously. Master God Diviner looked off into the distance, clenching his hands into fists. Then he sighed. Heaven Oracle, my former, senior brother. Master Godly Mathematician clenched his fists. Dozens of years ago, he left the Heavenly Secret Divination sect and joined the legendary Saber Pavilion. His position is not low, and he wants to steal our sect's ancestral treasure, the Heavenly Secret Divine Mirror. Heaven's Oracle? Tianji Divine Mirror? Lin Tian frowned. The Five Elements Crocodile was slightly moved, and a strange light flashed in his eyes. He looked at the clairvoyant and said, Well, speaking of which, decades ago, there was a big mess in the divination school at that time. Since then, the divine predictor disappeared, and the bamboo forest where the divination school was stationed turned into ruins overnight. What happened at that time? Hearing this, Lin Tian was slightly surprised. Is that true? The legacy encampment had been reduced to ruins overnight. This kind of thing, no matter how one looked at it, it seemed like it had been destroyed by someone. Naturally. Wishing Crocodile curled his lips. This matter has already spread in the ninth heaven. There are only a few people who don't know about it. Lin Tian frowned. He thought of something and looked at Master Godly Mathematician. Is it related to that Heaven Oracle? Master Godly Mathematician mentioned his senior brother at the beginning. Moreover, when he mentioned this person, he saw Master Godly Mathematician clench his fists, and his expression was a little strange. It seems that it wasn't just because Heaven Oracle wanted to kill him and Yan Yer. Master Godly Mathematician nodded. Yes. He clenched his fists, and after a few breaths he spoke again. Our divination school's ancestor left behind a heavenly secret dojo, which contains the divine mirror. It has an unfathomable ability, and only the previous masters of the heavenly secret divination school know its location. However, according to the ancestors' instructions, the previous masters never went to the heavenly secret dojo to retrieve the divine mirror, because they were not qualified to do so. Decades ago, my master, Tianjizi, the master of the Heavenly Secret Divination School, suddenly passed the position of the next master to me, and then. Master Godly Mathematician couldn't help but clench his fists. Lin Tian frowned and guessed. Then, Senior, your senior brother, Heaven Oracle, became hostile because he didn't get the position. He joined the Heavenly Secret Saber Pavilion with the power of the Heavenly Secret Divination School, and then used the power of the World Saber Pavilion to destroy the Heavenly Secret Divination School's base. However, what he really wanted wasn't the position of the master of the Heavenly Secret Divination School, but to find out the location of the Heavenly Secret Dojo so that he could retrieve the divine mirror, right? He had learned a lot from Master Godly Mathematician, and it wasn't difficult for him to guess what had happened. Master Godly Mathematician nodded. Yes. Master Godly Mathematician said. That night decades ago, he brought a group of experts from the World Saber Pavilion back to the bamboo forest and interrogated my master about the location of the Heavenly Secret Dojo. Naturally, my master wouldn't tell him, and he used a special method to send me away from the base to escape the calamity. As for my master, the moment he sent me away, he killed himself. He killed himself. Lin Tian sighed. That senior must have been worried that something would happen after he was controlled, so he could roughly guess what Tian Jizi was thinking at that time. He was worried that the secret of the Heavenly Secret Dojo would be leaked after he was controlled by the so-called Heaven Oracle, so he killed himself. Master Godly Mathematician took a deep breath. Obviously he knew this, and his fists clenched even tighter. Then he sighed and said, Back then, senior brother, his talent was better than mine, and he was also stronger than me. At that time, when my master passed the position of the next master of the Heavenly Secret Divination School to me, I was actually very puzzled, but now... He tilted his head and looked at Yen Yer. Now I roughly understand why my master made such a decision. Lin Tian looked at Yen Yer, and his eyes lit up. Because your master, Tian Jizi, divined that your future disciple would have an immortal spiritual body, right? Wishing Crocodile asked. He glanced at Yen Yer and continued. According to the rumors, the founder of the Heavenly Secret Divination School, your ancestor, had an immortal spiritual body. As you mentioned before, because of the ancestral teachings, although the previous masters of the Heavenly Secret Divination School knew the location of the Heavenly Secret Dojo, they never went to the Heavenly Secret Divine Mirror. Presumably, the general content of the ancestral teachings is that only those with an immortal spiritual body can go to the Heavenly Secret Dojo to retrieve the Heavenly Secret Divine Mirror, right? The clairvoyant master's expression changed slightly. He was surprised that Wishing Crocodile could tell that Yen Yer had an immortal spiritual body, and he was surprised that Wishing Crocodile could guess what he had guessed. However, his surprise only lasted for a moment before it disappeared. After all, just now Yen Yer, with her half-step Nirvana realm cultivation, had attracted such rich and pure power of the Great Way. As long as one had a discerning eye, it would not be difficult to guess what Yen Yer's body was. As for the reason why Tian Jizi passed the position of the master of the Heavenly Secret Divination School to him, as long as one knew Yen Yer's body, it would not be difficult to guess. Our progenitor is indeed an immortal spirit body. The Tianji Dao field was left behind by our progenitor, and the Tianji Divine Mirror was also left behind by our progenitor. It can allow our Tianji Dao of divination to reach a higher level by more than 10 times, and it can help us perfect our Tianji Dao field. It has been sealed in the Tianji Dao field for who knows how long. The clairvoyant master looked at Wishing Crocodile and said, And the records of the ancestral teachings are indeed as this friend said. The content is that in the future generations, only disciples with immortal spiritual bodies can go to the Heavenly Secret Dojo to retrieve the Divine Mirror. Otherwise, they will be regarded as traitors. Just as Master Crocodile guessed. Wishing Crocodile nodded and looked at Yen Yer again. She is indeed an immortal spiritual body. The clairvoyant master's words not only confirmed his guess about the reason why Tian Jizi passed the position of the new master of the Heavenly Secret Divination School to him, but also accepted another point. Yen Yer indeed had an immortal spiritual body. Ling Yun also stared at Yen Yer. She is really an immortal spiritual body. Obviously, compared to the Heavenly Secret Divination School, he and Wishing Crocodile were more concerned about Yen Yer's immortal spiritual body. After all, the immortal spiritual body was not ordinary. As the favored child of the Great Way, it had an innate advantage in many things. Once the immortal spiritual body was completed, its combat power was unimaginable. Lin Tian squinted at the man and the crocodile. He didn't care about it because he already knew that Yen Yer had an immortal spiritual body. He looked at the clairvoyant master and said, In fact, When Tianjizi didn't pass the position of the next master of the Heavenly Secret Divination School to Tianjizi, it was because he knew that Tianjizi wanted to obtain the Divine Mirror. In addition, he knew that Senior's future disciple would have an immortal spiritual body, so he directly passed the position of the next master to Senior. He paused for a moment, then continued. After that incident, Senior should have secretly left the 9th heaven and went to the lower heaven. Now, after so many years, Senior has returned. Are you going to? He looked at Yenya and said, Are you going to take Miss Yer to the Heavenly Secret Dojo to retrieve the Divine Mirror? The clairvoyant master nodded. After that incident, I used a special method to suppress myself and left this heaven, so that Tianjizi couldn't deduce anything about me. Then I met Yer by chance and brought her with me. He looked at Yenya, then at Lin Tian. After so many years, Yer has reached the half-step nirvana realm. I think it's time to bring Yer back and let her go to the Heavenly Secret Dojo to retrieve the Divine Mirror. This is not only the will of the ancestor, but also the task entrusted to me by Master. It is also to make Yer stronger. A few days ago, Yer and I returned to this heaven through the transmission array, but we didn't expect that Tianjizi had set up some special means in this heaven. The technique I used to suppress myself to prevent him from deducing my whereabouts failed. He sensed my whereabouts and sent a powerhouse to catch me. After saying that, the clairvoyant master sighed and looked at Lin Tian now again. This time, it's really fortunate that we met you. Otherwise, Yer and I wouldn't have escaped this disaster. Yenya looked at Lin Tian, blinked her eyes, and said with a smile, It's really all thanks to you. Oh, I'm very glad. Lin Tian also chuckled. I'm also very glad that I happened to come here at this time. Otherwise, I might have lost a respected senior and a beautiful friend. Chapter 11:21. Genius 1 second. Remember love goes/little? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Lin Tian was indeed very glad. If he hadn't happened to pass by here, the God Diviner and Yenya would have been in trouble. He didn't want that to happen, no matter what. He was glad that he was able to come here and save the master and disciple. Boy, your words are really mushy. Wishing Crocodile curled his lips. I'm just telling the truth. Lin Tian. He paused and looked at Master Divine Mathematician. Senior, when do you plan to go to the Tianji dojo? In order to avoid any trouble, the sooner the better. I want to take Yenna there immediately. Master Divine Mathematician said. In the 9th heaven, Master Divine Mathematician has the support of the Behemoth Legendary Blade Pavilion, and they can calculate his whereabouts. The longer the delay, the greater the risk. The right thing to do is to get Yenya to get the Divine Mirror as soon as possible. Lin Tian thought for a while and said, If you don't mind, can I accompany you? Master Divine Mathematician was taken aback for a moment. There was obvious gratitude in his eyes, but he shook his head. Thank you for your kindness, little brother, but this may bring you a lot of trouble. We have already owed you a lot, and we can't give you any more trouble. He was very clear about the true meaning behind Lin Tian's offer to accompany him and Yenya to the Heavenly Secret Dojo. He knew that Heaven Oracle was relying on the legendary Saber Pavilion to deal with him and Yenya, so he was prepared to escort them to the Heavenly Secret Dojo. In fact, at this time, he really needed Lin Tian's help. However, he was very worried that this would bring a lot of trouble to Lin Tian. After all, his and Yenya's opponent is Master Divine Mathematician, who is also proficient in divination. Moreover, he has the support of the Behemoth Legendary Blade Pavilion. If Master Divine Mathematician targeted Lin Tian because of this, it would definitely not be a good thing for Lin Tian. It may cause a lot of unnecessary effects. Lin Tian's current cultivation level was very high, so he could tell what the clairvoyant master was thinking. He smiled and said, Senior, don't worry. I've never been afraid of trouble. Back when he was being hunted by the 7 Luminaries Empire, he encountered the clairvoyant master and Yenya in the forest. Yenya had directly sent him various news of the outside world. Later on, Yenya was captured by the Seven Luminaries' Empire to threaten the clairvoyant master to deduce his whereabouts. The clairvoyant master refused to comply. He was truly grateful to the master and disciple pair. Although an old drunkard had helped him save this pair of master and disciple, and he had also saved them once, none of that mattered. What mattered was that he knew that the clairvoyant master and Yenya were in trouble. Since he knew, he naturally wouldn't sit idly by and do nothing. As the saying goes, a drop of water should be repaid with a gushing spring. This was the principle, and he was very clear on this point. More importantly, he respected the clairvoyant and considered Yenya a good friend. Therefore, at this moment, he would of course choose to travel with the clairvoyant Yenya and escort her to the heavenly mystery godly mirror. The clairvoyant master was even more grateful, but he was still a little hesitant. "All right, old man, don't hesitate. Just like what Bratlin said before, we have already provoked 5 top forces in a row. Why should we be afraid of one more legendary saber pavilion?" Wishing Crocodile curled his lips and said, "Moreover, to be honest, Grandpa Crocodile really wants to go and take a look at the dojo left by the ancestor of your heavenly mystery sect." Lingyan also said, "Yes, don't think too much. At most, you can marry your disciple to Bratlin in the future to return the favor." Lin Tian couldn't help but frown. What is this guy talking about? He took a deep breath and said to the clairvoyant master, "It's decided, senior. When Monsieur successfully obtains the heavenly mystery godly mirror, we will part ways." As he said that, he smiled and said, "If senior feels that you owe me anything, then when Monsieur's heavenly mystery divination Tao is accomplished in the future, please allow this junior to shamelessly ask for some divination." The clairvoyant master was stunned again and smiled bitterly. Then, his expression became incomparably serious again. He looked at Yenya and said, "As long as this old man is still alive, as long as Yer can help, I will do my best to help you in the future." His expression was very serious. It was a kind of acceptance of Lin Tian's good intentions, and also a promise to Lin Tian. Yenya smiled lightly. She was not as courteous as the clairvoyant master. She seemed very ethereal as she thanked Lin Tian Dao. Lin Tianyi smiled. "Then, let's go now." The clairvoyant master nodded. Immediately, the group left this place and walked into the distance. In the southern region, on an incomparably majestic mountain, there was a huge palace. It was like the various divine pavilions of the celestial world. There was a kind of amazing divine essence intertwined between these palaces, and overall, there was a kind of soaring aura. This was the place where the legendary saber pavilion was established. What? In a large hall of the legendary saber pavilion, a few big shots of this branch gathered together, all of them frowning. Another person knelt on one knee in the hall. He was a deacon of the legendary saber pavilion. The legendary saber pavilion's hall of legacy brought news that the 10 people they sent to capture the clairvoyant master had all their soul lamps extinguished. Everyone was dead. Master Clairvoyant. In the hall, a middle-aged man in a purple robe looked at a middle-aged man in a Taoist robe and frowned. "Didn't you say that the clairvoyant master and the woman with the celestial spirit body were below the nirvana realm and were not a threat? In order to deduce the cultivation of the woman with the celestial spirit body, our sect had already sent people to die in place of Master. Master said that 10 nirvana realm cultivators would be able to suppress the 2 of them unharmed. However, the result seems to be a little different from Master's deduction." The middle-aged man in a Taoist robe tilted his head and looked at the middle-aged man in a purple robe. There was a sinister look in his eyes as he said, "Are you doubting my deduction? Fearin, Master has misunderstood. I was just a little curious." The middle-aged man in a purple robe was at the quasi-emperor level and was one of the big shots of the legendary saber pavilion. He was very powerful, but he was not angry at the unkind tone of the early-stage nirvana realm middle-aged man in a Taoist robe. This was because the middle-aged man in a Taoist robe was of great significance to the legendary saber pavilion. Moreover, over the years, the legendary saber pavilion had benefited greatly from the clairvoyant master's Tao of divine divination. Even one of their emperor-level ancestors had personally come out of seclusion to meet the clairvoyant master and personally said that he would treat the clairvoyant master as an important guest of the legendary Saber Pavilion. The clairvoyant master snorted coldly and a sinister light flashed in his eyes. I have already deduced the cause of the deaths of those people. It has nothing to do with the clairvoyant master and the celestial spirit body girl. It has nothing to do with their strength. Someone must have helped them. As he spoke, a cold light flashed in his eyes. He raised his hand and shot out a divine light screen. It reflected the figures of Lin Tian, Little Taichu, Wishing Crocodile, Ling Yun, the clairvoyant master, and Yen Ye. There was even a blurry image of Lin Tian fighting. Although it was not very clear, it was enough to explain many things. This man saved the clairvoyant master and his disciple? The middle-aged man in a purple robe froze. His gaze fell on Lin Tian in the divine light screen and he could not help but frown. If that is the case, this will be a little troublesome. As he spoke, his gaze involuntarily shifted to the little Taichu above Lin Tian's head in the divine light screen. A few days ago, Lin Tian had killed the yin-yang saint child and several quasi-emperors in the Taichu Immortal Ridge because of the mysterious little beast by his side. It was said that the little beast was at the emperor level. If Lin Tian was protecting the clairvoyant master and his disciple, then it would be very troublesome for them to capture them. Ordinary people and ordinary methods would be absolutely ineffective. There were other important figures of this faction in the hall. They were all very powerful, but at this time, they were all frowning. Evidently, they had also thought of the series of problems that the middle-aged man in a purple robe was thinking of. Troublesome? The clairvoyant master snorted coldly. What you think is just troublesome? Have you never thought that this is an immortal opportunity? He looked at the middle-aged man in a purple robe and the others and said sinisterly, that Lin Tian is rumored to control several celestial venerable ancient scriptures. If we take this opportunity to suppress him together with the clairvoyant master and his disciple, not only will I obtain the divine mirror of heavenly secrets, which will greatly increase my divination power and make your legendary Saber Pavilion stronger in the future. You will also obtain several celestial venerable ancient scriptures, which will rapidly increase your sex strength. In the future, it will definitely not be a problem for you to dominate the world. He continued, that little beast by his side is indeed very powerful, but how powerful can it be? Can it be heaven-defying? Given the strength of your legendary Saber Pavilion, can't you deal with such a little beast? Think about it carefully. As long as you suppress him and the clairvoyant master and his disciple, you will be rewarded handsomely. Hearing this, the expression of the middle-aged man in purple robe and the others changed. Their eyes couldn't help but light up when they heard this. Indeed, the clairvoyant master was right. As long as they suppressed Lin Tian and the clairvoyant master would obtain the divine mirror of heavenly secrets, which would greatly increase his divination power. In the future, it would be even better for the legendary Saber Pavilion to become the strongest sect in the world after suppressing Lin Tian. In addition, they would be able to obtain several celestial venerable ancient scriptures from Lin Tian, which would greatly increase their sex strength. With these two combined, it wouldn't be a problem for the legendary Saber Pavilion to dominate the world in the future. In the future, the legendary Saber Pavilion would definitely become the strongest sect in the world. I'll have to report this matter to the patriarchs and ask them to make a decision. The middle-aged man in purple robe said in a deep voice, but there was a faint glimmer in his eyes. The sky was blue, and there were white clouds everywhere. Lin Tian and the others left the place where they had been before. With Master God Diviner leading the way, their speed was quite fast, and the scenery on both sides flashed by rapidly. Senior, we seem to be leaving the western region and heading towards the southern region. Is the Tianji dojo located in the southern region? Lin Tian asked the clairvoyant master. Beside him, Wishing Crocodile and Ling Yun also tilted their heads to look at the clairvoyant master. At this time, they naturally noticed the same problem as Lin Tian. Chapter 11:22. A genius remembers love in 1 second/small? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Facing Lin Tian, Wishing Crocodile, and Ling Yun's gazes, the clairvoyant master nodded. Indeed, the Tianji dojo is located in the southern region. Love go little say netku. Previously, when I entered the ninth heaven through the cross-heaven teleportation array, I couldn't control the specific foothold, so I ended up in the western domain, and the heavenly oracle and the legendary blade pavilion. Master Clairvoyant didn't finish his sentence, but Lin Tian and the others already knew what happened next. If we fly from here to the southern domain, it'll take at least a few months. Let's find a sect to use the teleportation portal. Lin Tian now. The ninth heaven is extremely vast, and the distance between the 4 domains is naturally very far. The time it takes to cross from one domain to another is unimaginable. Even with their current powerful cultivation base, it will take a lot of time to cross from here to the southern region. At this time, the best way is to use the teleportation platform of some sect inheritance, which can generally teleport them to a very far distance in an instant. Yes, that should be the case. Ling Yun said. I think so too. Yenyer nodded. Master God Diviner nodded in agreement. It was a very good idea. Wishing Crocodile said. The sect closest to this place is called the Northern Violet Divine Sect. It is a second-level power in this heaven domain. There are several quasi-emperors overseeing the sect, and they have teleportation formations that lead directly to the other 3 domains. Alright, then let's head to the Northern Purple Divine Sect to borrow the teleportation array. Lin Tian now. Wishing Crocodile immediately led the way towards the Northern Purple Divine Sect. This place was a bit far from Northern Purple God Sect, but it wasn't too far. The group flew in the air for about 3 days before finally arriving at a mountain range. There were immortal palaces with immortal birds flying above them. The spirit energy here was shockingly dense. We're here. The Northern Purple Sect is right in front. Wishing Crocodile said. Lin Tian nodded. Let's go. Yeah. A childish voice rang out above Lin Tian's head. Little Taishu spoke up and pulled Lin Tian's head. Lin Tianwei was puzzled, but then her expression changed. She tilted her head and looked towards the northwest. Ling Yun was curious. Kid, why? Boom! 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 At this moment, overbearing divine power intertwined from the northwest. 3 silhouettes rushed over and arrived in the blink of an eye. They were 3 middle-aged men, one in green robes, one in golden armor, and one in brown hair. All of them had cold expressions, and a faint emperor's aura surrounded them. Moreover, there was an extremely sharp blade intent lingering in the void. 3 quasi-emperors from the legendary Saber Pavilion. Whooshing Crocodile narrowed its eyes. The marvelous mathematician's expression froze. He clenched his fists and didn't look too good. He knew that the marvelous mathematician wouldn't give up on dealing with him. He was determined to get the whereabouts of the mysterious heavenly mirror from him. However, he didn't expect the marvelous mathematician to send more experts to kill him. Moreover, it was 3 quasi-emperors. A person of this level was very terrifying. Yenyer frowned slightly, but soon relaxed. This was because Lin Tian was standing beside her. Lin Tian looked at the 3 quasi-emperors from the legendary Saber Pavilion and naturally knew why they had chased him all the way here. Get lost if you don't want to die, he said. Opposite him, the 3 middle-aged men snorted coldly. Their gazes fell on the marvelous mathematician and Lin Tian. There was a sharp light in their eyes as if they were looking at the peerless divine treasures of the 2 sections. The next moment, the 3 of them moved and worked together to summon blood-red banners. There were a total of 999 banners. Each banner was about 10 feet long and was engraved with densely packed out patterns. The moment they appeared, they exuded a terrifying killing power. There was the Emperor's aura of a true Emperor-level expert intertwined among them. The faint Emperor's aura of a quasi-Emperor couldn't compare to it. In an instant, the 999 banners swayed and directly trapped Lin Tianyi and the others in the center. For a moment, Lin Tian frowned. Wishing Crocodile and Ling Yun were slightly shocked. The marvelous mathematician and Yenyer also turned pale. The killing formation formed by 999 Emperor-level banners was forged by at least 2 Emperor-level experts. Moreover, they weren't ordinary Emperors. They were at least at the 6th heaven of the Emperor realm, which is enough to kill a 3rd heaven of the Emperor realm. Wishing Crocodile cursed. Damn, Master Crocodile found it strange just now. Why didn't these 3 bastards care about you at all when they saw you? At least you killed 7 or 8 quasi-emperors before. Ordinary quasi-emperors should be wary of you. It turns out that these 3 bastards still have such things on them. No wonder they are so confident. That's not all. Those bastards didn't seem the least bit surprised to see us here with Master God Diviner. It was almost as if they knew we were here all along. Furthermore, they were looking at Master God Diviner and Master Lin like prey. Clearly, they weren't just targeting Master God Diviner, they were targeting Master Lin as well, Ling Yun said. Lin Tian's eyes were intertwined with a glimmer. Naturally, he also noticed the problem mentioned by Ling Yun. He said, "There is only one explanation. After a dozen people from the legendary Saber Pavilion were killed, the marvelous mathematician calculated that we were helping the marvelous mathematician. After that, I think they are also targeting the celestial venerable ancient scriptures that I have. They want to take them away." Hearing this, Wishing Crocodile and Ling Yun nodded slightly. Obviously, Lin Tian's statement was the only explanation. Boom! 999 large banners soared into the sky. The murderous power was tyrannical, shaking the 10 directions as if it was going to collapse the entire place. This kind of power was tyrannical and terrifying. It rolled up a terrifying hurricane, broke through the sky, and shook the earth. In an instant, this place seemed to have been hit by a huge earthquake. The mountains in front of them shook violently. Large trees were directly broken and shattered. The palaces of the Northern Purple Divine Sect in the mountains shook. Then, a protective formation around the palaces appeared on its own, firmly protecting the palaces. Suddenly, the entire Northern Purple Divine Sect was alarmed. What's wrong? What's going on? What happened? Many disciples of the Northern Purple Divine Sect were in a mess. The sect leader and a few supreme elders of this faction walked out in shock. Soon after, each of them sensed the reason why the dense palaces in their faction shook and the protective runes activated on their own. All of them looked out of the mountain range. That is, staring out of the mountains, the big shots of the Northern Purple Divine Sect saw the 99 large banners, 3 quasi-emperors, and Lin Tianyi and the others. For a moment, the shock on their faces deepened. Is that Lin Tian? Those 3 middle-aged men are quasi-emperors? They seem to be from the legendary Saber Pavilion. Are those large banners a killing formation? This killing formation caused the land of our sect to shake? Terrifying, terrifying. It can even destroy an emperor, right? That Lin Tian, when did he become enemies with the legendary Saber Pavilion? Many disciples of the Northern Purple Divine Sect followed the gaze of their sect master and a few highest elders. When they saw the scene outside the mountains, they were all extremely shocked. Boom! The 999 large banners swayed in the wind, sealing off the 4 directions. The murderous power of these banners was terrifying. The 3 middle-aged men were guarding 3 directions, jointly controlling the 999 large banners. They looked coldly at Lin Tianyi and the others. Before this, the Legacy Saber Pavilion had sent a dozen experts to hunt down the Divine Diviner and his disciples, but they had all been killed. The Divine Diviner had divined that Lin Tian's group was helping the Divine Diviner and his disciples, and pointed out that Lin Tian had several celestial venerate ancient scriptures. As long as the Legacy Saber Pavilion could suppress Lin Tian and the Divine Diviner together, not only would they be able to obtain the Heavenly Divination Divine Mirror, but they would also be able to obtain several celestial venerate ancient scriptures from Lin Tian. In the future, they would be able to dominate the 10 Directions Heaven region without any problems. After that, the legendary Saber Pavilion was indeed tempted. After reporting to the elders of the Saber Pavilion, they finally received approval. Now they were here to suppress both Lin Tian and the Oracle Master. Before this, Because there was a rumor that Lin Tian had an emperor-rank small beast, the three of them were given a secret divine treasure, the 9 Annihilations Slaughter Formation. This sex array was forged by 3 seventh heaven emperors in the past. Even a third heaven emperor could easily destroy it. Among the three, the green-clothed middle-aged man glanced at the Oracle Master, looked at Lin Tian, and then looked at the little taichu on Lin Tian's head. He sneered. So what if it's an emperor rank? It's at most a second sky emperor realm expert. The big shots of their faction all agreed that the little taichu by Lin Tian's side was at most a second sky emperor realm expert. Not long ago, when the little taichu killed the quasi-emperors of the Yin-Yang sect and other major factions, they didn't sense any strong emperor aura from the little taichu. Furthermore, the 9 Annihilation Slaughter Formation could easily kill a third sky emperor realm expert. Therefore, they weren't worried at all. Yeah. The little taichu lay on Lin Tian's head. Seeing the green-clothed middle-aged man staring at it with a cold smile, it was very dissatisfied. Among the 3 middle-aged men, the brown-clothed middle-aged man snorted and said coldly, "Don't talk nonsense. Attack and suppress." The other 2 middle-aged men nodded and raised their hands to form seals. In an instant, 999 large flags trembled together, releasing an even more terrifying aura that shook the entire sky. The whooshing crocodile, Lingyun, Yenya, and the Oracle Master were all shocked. "Don't worry, we won't kill you. We'll leave you alive. There are many things that we need to get from you," the golden-clothed middle-aged man said coldly. Right after Shaochen spoke, a boundless killing light surged toward the group like a vast sea. Rumble! The void in all directions collapsed at the first moment. Lin Tian frowned and asked the little taichu, "Little guy, can you block it?" You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.